Okay, I think we'll get started now, right? So, thank you for everybody to be here, especially the village staff. So this is the UPP 505, 506 final presentation. UPP stands for Urban Planning and Public Policy Program at UIC. For nearly 20 years, this class has been a rite of passage for the students in the Masters in Urban Planning and Policy Program. And we created this class because we believe that plan making is a craft, and the best way to learn a craft is by doing. And to that end, on behalf of the UIC and also our Department of Urban Planning and Public Policy, I would like to thank the village for giving us this opportunity, and some of the village staff has actually attended our classes to give the insights to the students throughout the semester, and I really, really appreciate that. The students who have worked on these plans are mostly first-year students. Some of them are second semester students, so they do have little ways to go in our program. And this is for some of them, this is their first experience in plan making. The charges we gave the students in the beginning of semester were to create a plan for each of the 5 business districts that was selected by the discussion between the UIC and the village in the beginning of the semester. You saw each of the plans on the poster out there. And plan should advance the broad directions set by the Economic Vitality Plan at the granular level, and also at the same time bring the innovative and bold ideas that can only come from the imaginative, brilliant, and often over-caffeinated minds of the graduate students. Before we begin, village manager, Mr. Jackson, Kevin Jackson, would like to say some words.
Okay. First and foremost, welcome you guys. How exciting. I didn't anticipate such a large crowd, but excited to see all your faces. And probably just about maybe a little over 20 years ago, I was kind of in your same position presenting my work in a public administration program at Arizona State University. So this is super exciting to me that we've actually engaged with you all in this partnership to try to create a vision for economic vitality in our commercial corridors here in the Village of Oak Park. I'm almost certain that what we've seen from the posters, that there's going to be resonant value created for us here at the Village, and there's going to be some applicability with some of the concepts that are illustrated in those poster boards. So when I saw them last night, I got really excited, and I was looking forward today to listening to your presentations. I want to thank Professor Kamar for actually making this connection to Oak Park and the work of the students in the class and your work over at the university. I do understand that you are also an Oak Park resident, so that's a value add. So without further ado, I'm not going to take up any more time. I want you guys just to lean into your passion. Let us know what you got. I'm looking forward to hearing the presentations.
Thank you. So just give you the overview of the study for the people who have not heard about this, maybe hearing about this first time. So these are the 5 study areas which matches loosely to the business districts. And these are the 5 instructors. Why don't you stand up and take some credit here? So we have some seasoned instructors as well as the 2 new instructors for this particular class. Sarah Egan and Katania Ravi sitting over there has been the first time they have taught this class, but they have done a brilliant job, as you can see. And let's go to the agenda here so we can begin. So this is the order of presentation, and each of the sections will be presenting for about 20 minutes. And followed by about 10 minutes of Q&A, up to 10 minutes of Q&A, and I will start with the village staff to give feedback. It can be questions, or it can be just feedback or comments on it. And if there's time remaining after the Q&A, then I will swing that over to the faculty to comment, or maybe other students. So we're going to take a break at the 4:05 to about 4:15, and we're going to have the last 2 sections presenting. All right. So first section to begin is the Lopez Garcia section on Chicago Avenue. I think you have to leave to pick up your baby daughter after this. So he goes first.
Hello, my name is Maisie, and I'm joined this afternoon by Sam, Marnie, and Josh to present our corridor plan for Chicago Avenue, which we titled Chicago Avenue Cares. This is Chicago Avenue at Ridgeland as it currently stands. This is how we envision it, a connected, active, resilient, equitable, and safe corridor that mirrors the rest of its street. During this presentation, we'll walk you through Chicago Avenue's existing conditions, our process, our vision for the corridor, and our recommendations for how to reach our vision through promoting economic vitality. To inform our recommendations for economic vitality, we must first understand the existing conditions on Chicago Avenue. The study area pictured above is the area within a quarter mile of Chicago Avenue in all directions. Because Oak Park values being a walkable community, the study area aims to capture the residents and neighbors who live within a 10-minute walk of the corridor. Our team used the study area to understand existing conditions and inform our vision and goals. We then identified distinct sections on Chicago Avenue, Harlem, Central, and Austin to help give more geographic specificity to our recommendations. The West End near Harlem Avenue benefited from sustained economic development and targeted urban planning that attracted tourism and retail, supported by its proximity to the Frank Lloyd Wright Historic District. In contrast, the East End near Austin Boulevard, bordering Chicago's historically disinvested Austin neighborhood, suffered from mid-20th century economic neglect. These structural inequalities and policy decisions led to uneven investment along the same corridor, resulting in two separate commercial identities. The total population of our study area is 10,693 people. There are differences in racial makeup and median income along the corridor. The most homogeneous white population and the highest income is concentrated in the center section, while the more racially diverse and lower income section leans toward the eastern side of the corridor. We'd also like to highlight that there is a larger senior population and more racial diversity in our study area than compared to the village overall. The percentage of cost-burdened households in the study area mirrors racial and economic disparities. 35 to 45% of households on the east side report spending more than a third of their income on housing. Providing more affordable housing in the corridor is not just a way to advance equity, it's also economically advantageous as it increases the consumer base and disposable income that can be spent on local businesses. To better understand the corridor's economic potential, we performed a leakage analysis to determine the dollars lost in the study area from those driving 5 minutes or more to have their daily needs met. From October 2024 to January 2025, we can see that there is an average retail leakage of about $110 per person leaving the study area every week. This is an issue if Chicago Avenue aims to be a resilient business corridor that serves local needs. Moving around the corridor without a car also presents issues. Chicago Avenue has unequal bicycle infrastructure on the east and west sides, making it challenging and dangerous to bike down the avenue. For the most part, bikes and cars share a lane on the west side, and bikes get their own lane on the east side. There are no bike lanes at multiple intersections along Chicago Avenue, places where cyclists often feel the most unsafe. Safety is a concern for pedestrians as well. The image shows a crosswalk on the Chicago and Harlem side with no signage or stop sign. We observed many similar crosswalks along the corridor. The top map shows the amount of cars that travel through the corridor each day. The west side of the corridor sees nearly 15,000 vehicles a day, right at the upper limit for a minor arterial. Oak Park's Vision Zero plan identifies the most dangerous streets in the village on the bottom map. The central section of the corridor and the Chicago and Austin intersection are both identified as high injury areas. High volume traffic has both positives and negatives for businesses along Chicago Avenue. On the one hand, this is a well-traveled route for many patrons who may want to visit businesses. However, the high traffic raises safety concerns, especially for pedestrians, cyclists, and young children going to and from Holmes Elementary School. Looking ahead, we can see that Oak Park is most likely to face more flooding as climate change exacerbates storms, as shown in this flooding risk map. From an economic standpoint, flooding is an important consideration for the village because it can cause expensive damage to homes and businesses, as well as present safety concerns for people traveling along the corridor. After analyzing the existing conditions on Chicago Avenue, here are our key takeaways. Some strengths include established local businesses, the Frank Lloyd Wright District, and the newly planned Percy L. Julian streetscape that all provide historic character. There is also an excellent opportunity to attract visitors along Chicago Avenue beyond the Frank Lloyd Wright home. But as we've seen, the corridor is both visually and physically disconnected. It's not comfortable to cross the street or to go from one end to the other without a car. And a lack of visual cohesion makes it difficult to attract development to the area or for existing businesses to attract patrons who want to linger. Furthermore, the leakage analysis shows us that there is a significant amount of local dollars being lost in the corridor. As a result of our extensive research and analysis, we envision Chicago Avenue as a connected, active, resilient, equitable, and safe corridor with a sustainable business environment that meets local needs and attracts visitors. These 5 icons are associated with our goals, which together make up the acronym CARES. You'll see these throughout the plan associated with our recommendations. Our planning process started with data collection to establish existing conditions. Using that analysis, we crafted our vision and goals and brainstormed over 35 potential recommendations, which we narrowed using a feasibility assessment. We then had the opportunity to present our ideas, gather feedback, and apply those changes while using scenario planning to finalize our recommendations. We categorize our recommendations into 3 categories. Marnie will take us through the first, nurturing neighborhood businesses.
A healthy, dynamic economy depends on an active consumer base, long-standing establishments, and a supportive environment for new business growth. High rents for in-demand commercial spaces and overly complicated permitting processes threaten business retention and expansion in Oak Park. The village should foster a nurturing and supportive business community that is resilient to economic instability and promotes equity in ownership and retention. Recommendations in this section seek to ensure the success of small businesses through affirmative action, strengthen entrepreneurial networks, creative zoning solutions, and financial assistance programs. To catalyze economic development, the Village of Oak Park should start a business incubator to support and nurture small businesses in the community. Incubators provide assistance to businesses, including affordable workspace, access to capital, mentorship, networking opportunities, and development services. By lowering the barriers to entry, the incubator would enable entrepreneurs to focus on innovation and growth, which contributes to a more vibrant urban economy. Adding businesses to Chicago Avenue would allow nearby residents to meet their daily needs locally, addressing the current retail leakage on the corridor. The first element of the business incubator involves providing affordable retail space with a startup market and retail pop-up markets, which would prioritize entrepreneurs from marginalized backgrounds. The second element of the business incubator would provide extra community and village support for small businesses. This includes improving the existing startup guide, identifying representation for the Austin and Harlem business districts and Oak Park's Business Association, and creating a support and mentorship network between new and established businesses. Worker cooperatives offer a model for boosting economic vitality in Oak Park, particularly as the village follows a national trend of retiring entrepreneurs who often lack a clear succession plan. As business owners like Jason and Rachel of the book table retire without plans to continue their businesses, transitioning to employee ownership can preserve local institutions, stabilize jobs, maintain community character. In worker cooperatives, workers collectively own, govern, and share profits. Beyond the resilience, worker cooperatives provide tangible economic benefits for employees and the broader community, with increased wages, benefits, and community wealth, which is particularly important during recessions. The village should invest in educational workshops and materials to promote and incentivize transferring to worker ownership and new co-ops to aid in preserving cherished community institutions on Chicago Avenue and beyond. Our second sub-recommendation for nurturing neighborhood businesses is centered around financial assistance. By offering financial support, the village can create an environment where those businesses can thrive and support one another and can promote equity by focusing assistance toward business owners belonging to marginalized communities. The village should waive specific license fees for new businesses, lowering the barrier of entry for new owners and encouraging new, innovative businesses to take root in Oak Park. The chart on the right shows an example of some of the fees a restaurant owner in Oak Park currently needs to pay. While this amount may not be a challenge for established businesses, it can pose a significant threat for newer ones. The village should also provide financial support through grants that target specific goals. Grants should encourage owners to make improvements, like a climate resiliency grant that would help businesses increase flood resilience and transition to renewable energy. To aid owners from marginalized backgrounds that may face difficulties locating in Oak Park, a diversity grant from the village should help address these difficulties as well. Finally, a revolving loan fund would promote resilience in the Oak Park business network. After the village provides seed money, loans can be given to business owners, especially those who may not qualify for traditional lending. Loan fees and repayments go back into the fund, making it self-replenishing. Our final sub-recommendation for nurturing neighborhood businesses is to amend village zoning to allow for accessory commercial units, or ACUs. ACUs are a creative zoning solution that provides space for daily commercial needs within residential neighborhoods. ACUs are similar to accessory dwelling units, but they are dedicated to commercial uses instead of housing. Because of the prevalence of large lots with yards or garages that front on side streets, ACUs are a great solution for this corridor in particular. They would attract pedestrian activity and create a more connected Chicago Avenue. That was for the last slide. There we go. We have broken up the implementation of our nurturing neighborhood businesses into short, medium, and long-term steps. The short-term steps include identifying village staff to coordinate the business incubator and engaging the community on ACU zoning. Medium-term steps include updating the business startup guide, launching a mentorship program, and implementing community feedback. And long-term steps include developing the business incubator space and finalizing financial assistance. I'm now going to turn it to my colleague Sam as they go over our second recommendation.
Vacant lots along Chicago Avenue present a significant opportunity to energize the corridor and support local economic growth. Our recommendations focus on activating these underutilized spaces through community events and creative redevelopment. This map identifies the 6 vacancies along Chicago Avenue, and as you may notice, there's a cluster on the eastern side of the corridor in the Austin Business District, where we focus our recommendations. Our first reactivation strategy is community programming. Hosting events is a low-cost, high-impact way to support local businesses by drawing foot traffic, creating a sense of community cohesion, and demonstrating the value of not just the parcels, but the entire corridor to potential developers. After acquiring a vacant lot or receiving permission from its owners, the village should collaborate with local businesses and organizations to host events like pop-up markets with live music, food festivals, community classes, and block parties. Chicago Avenue is home to several vibrant arts and culture institutions. Working with the Oak Park Art League or the Language and Music School, just to name a few, can strengthen neighborhood ties along Chicago Avenue utilizing its existing assets. This rendering offers a glimpse of what community programming could bring to the corridor, highlighting how even a temporary setup can activate space, create a sense of community and place, and draw people to Chicago Avenue. Our next recommendation is a more permanent transformation, establishing an art hub at 400 Chicago Avenue on the corner of Chicago and Ridgeland, creating cohesion between the other arts and culture offerings along the corridor. This leverages momentum from the Percy L. Julian Streetscapes Plan, the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust Art Center expansion, and the Soul City Corridor Plan to cement Chicago Avenue in neighboring Austin as a Black arts and culture corridor. The photo on the left shows what 400 Chicago Avenue looks like now. Not very exciting or inviting. We see a parallel trajectory with the Pullman Art Space Lofts, which similarly revitalized vacant land to create affordable live-work units and exhibition space for artists, along with community gathering space. Our vision for this development would feature affordable housing for artists, accessible studios and maker spaces, an art center for community programming, and a ground-level artist market with retail and dining. Connecting to our nurturing neighborhood businesses recommendation, the Art Hub could also house artist cooperatives or collectives along with pop-ups. This concept rendering illustrates this potential transformation. Improving arts and cultural spaces would help extend the impact of the 120,000 annual visitors drawn by the Frank Lloyd Wright Home and Studio, encouraging them to explore additional sites and businesses along the corridor, boosting local economic activity while fostering a sense of neighborhood pride and identity. Our final lot reactivation development proposal is the Chicago Avenue Innovation Center, which supports entrepreneurship while addressing affordable housing needs. The vacancies at 40 Chicago Avenue and 33 Chicago Avenue present an opportunity for a coordinated mixed-use development. We envision a business incubator with co-working and office space on the ground floor of 40 Chicago Avenue with mixed-income housing units above. Across the street, 33 Chicago could host a village-run retail space showcasing rotating pop-up businesses from the incubator. And this is what the Innovation Center would look like. Providing more affordable housing along Chicago Avenue, especially on the eastern side, where 30 to 45% of renter households are cost burdened, is not just the equitable thing to do. It also helps anchor a stronger local workforce near job opportunities. Expanding Oak Park's inclusionary housing ordinance beyond transit-oriented development areas will complement these efforts. By reducing costs for office and retail space, the village will support a new generation of entrepreneurs looking to start and expand their businesses in Oak Park. Short-term implementation steps involve acquiring the lots, some minor policy updates, and getting community feedback. In the medium term, the village would plan events, solicit proposals, and refine development plans. Long-term, the village will conduct surveys to refine programming, coordinate resources for artists, and integrate business support programs into the Innovation Center. It's important to note that a recent development on one of our recommended lots faced pushback from neighbors. So we want to emphasize that the village must meaningfully engage with the community on design and development at every step along the way. Now I will pass it to my colleague Josh for our final recommendations.
Great streets are great for businesses. They are more attractive to customers arriving by any mode of transportation. That is why our final recommendation is called the Streetscape Improvement Initiative, which focuses on making Chicago Avenue more connected, active, safe, and resilient. The first part of this recommendation involves improving the bike and pedestrian infrastructure throughout the corridor. The goals of this recommendation are to improve safety and connectivity across the corridor and its businesses. As noted in the existing conditions, the current bike infrastructure is uneven and unsafe for cyclists. At minimum, the existing bike lanes should be extended for the full length of the corridor, but the village can do more. The figure at the top of the screen depicts the current right-of-way on Chicago Avenue where a bike lane exists. At the bottom is what this right-of-way would look like under our proposed changes. By switching the bike and parking lanes, cyclists are protected and parking is unaffected. To provide even greater separation, a physical barrier should be installed, depending on the availability of funding. Street improvements can actually increase the parking availability as more people choose to walk and bike to businesses instead of drive. Part 2 of this recommendation involves improving the green spaces around the corridor and looks to make the corridor more resilient and visually appealing. Chicago Avenue already has a robust tree canopy, but this alone cannot address the expensive issue of the current and continuously increasing flood risk. One way to address this issue is through green solutions. Bioswales have been shown to be effective at reducing urban flooding and are common in cities where flash flood events, which become more common as climate change worsens. This solution performs several tasks at once. It visually improves the streetscape, reduces the load on storm sewers, and protects businesses and residences from costly flood damage. This map here is a preliminary look at spots that the planning team identified as possible locations for bioswales. Next to the map are 2 examples of how these bioswales could look. However, one of the advantages of bioswales is that they can be built anywhere, be any size, and be shaped as needed. The final part of this recommendation is to improve the signage on Chicago Avenue in order to build a cohesive identity for the corridor and connect residents and visitors to locations across the corridor. Signage can play an important role as a way to brand a location as a business corridor and direct visitors to different locations. Some signage exists on Chicago Avenue, but it can be improved. Better wayfinding at the Frank Lloyd Wright home is particularly important to drive visitors to both the Harlem and Austin business districts. Just like the first 2 recommendations, we've laid out the implementation of the Streetscape Improvement Initiative into short, medium, and long-term steps. The short-term steps revolve around coordination and early planning. The medium-term steps are primarily financial. And the final steps involve the actual implementation of each part of the Streetscape Improvement Initiative. Now, I will turn it back to Maisie to wrap things up.
Throughout the plan, we identify metrics the village can use to evaluate the success of our recommendations. Each metric corresponds to one of our goals, and they range from short to long term. These 5 are just a sample of our full matrix, which is based on the logical framework model. Finally, we built this plan with the understanding that external events may affect the village's ability to implement any of the recommendations that we propose. The first scenario we take into account is based on the current changes to funding availability and requirements at the federal level. Second is the possibility of an economic recession, and third is whether the local community gives their support to recommendations. Another full matrix outlining how different recommendations can be implemented in the event of any of these scenarios is also in the plan. Finally, we would like to present again our vision for Chicago Avenue, where vacant lots have been reactivated, cyclists and pedestrians are safe and comfortable, the sidewalks are green, flooding is mitigated, and businesses in the community are thriving. Thank you so much, and now we'll take questions.
Thank you. Like to start with the Q&A session, like to go around this way. And this is first time around, so if you could introduce yourself to the student, I think that would be very helpful.
Hi, Lindsay Narodka, the Chief Sustainability Officer. First of all, very nice job. Very enjoyable presentation. One of the questions that I had was when you were looking at the activation, of the vacant lots, was there any discussion at that time of utilizing those vacant lots for some of the climate resiliency aspects of the plan?
I don't believe that we did, but I mean, it is a very large impervious surface. So if we could make that more permeable, or like have bioswales around the area, or develop it into like a clean energy generation plant, that could also work. But no, that was not. We haven't discussed that.
And to add to that, if you build new buildings on those lots, you can always make the roof a blue roof or a green roof. Something to retain more water and help, because Oak Park is, and the entire inner suburbs, but Oak Park is one of the many inner suburbs that are very at risk for flash flooding events. I already get flash flooding, but will only get worse.
All right, thank you.
All right, great job. I'm Kira Chang. I'm the Assistant Village Manager and HR Director. And I also want to just note, I live close to Chicago Avenue here in the community, so it's very exciting to see ideas for that corridor. I don't think I have any questions, but I think in general I have a comment that I really appreciated the way that you considered the connection to existing programming in neighboring communities as part of your analysis. Building bridges between the community here in Oak Park and the Austin community is such a critical part of our role as a neighbor and building upon our own DEI efforts here. So just want to thank you for that consideration.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Birch. I'm Assistant Village Manager and Neighborhood Services Director. Thanks so much for this presentation. It was really interesting to see again, much like Kira was saying, how you extended both into River Forest and into the Austin neighborhood, and then especially the arts hub idea in terms of being able to extend the corridor to the east. My question was specifically about the accessory commercial units idea. Obviously, there's sort of two stronger commercial hubs, let's say, on either end of it. And so one of the things that I was thought would be, I'd love to hear more about is like, how did you balance the concerns about diluting corridor, commercial along the whole of the corridor versus trying to continue to concentrate in those two areas?
So our AC expert is right here, but kind of our idea for that was that the ACUs in the Frank Lloyd Wright district would be supporting the visitors that are already attending like the touristy kind of nature of that area. And then with the signage that we talked about in Streetscape, create a method that allows those people to go to the Frank Lloyd Wright district, kind of patronize that area, and then expand out to the rest of the corridor to patronize those businesses as well. So it's very much a supportive framework and less of like a competitive between the three areas of the corridor.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Yopchik. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Village. Job well done to all of you. It was a great presentation, very easy to follow. I have a couple of questions. First, one of the sections, I think it was kind of around the Innovation Center, you talked about a short-term part of that is kind of engaging residents for feedback on that project. What does that look like?
I would say do it early and often, especially because it is on the corridor where we have received pushback, see where that development went wrong and see where the points where you could have engaged with community members. Go to those community members, host events, or where there are already events, post up in a booth or something, yeah.
I'll also add that in our plan, we've developed a few survey questions, like sample survey questions to distribute in kind of that lens of community engagement around those developments. So they're in the appendix at the end of our plan for you guys to look at.
And then the second question I had too had to do with kind of the branding as it relates to that last section on the streetscape. You know, I think that is certainly an issue kind of throughout our community, right? It's a little bit disjointed. Would you recommend kind of having, when it comes to that corridor, having sort of a standalone, you know, brand to tell that story and to be present there, or connecting it within other areas of the village?
I think both. I think Chicago Avenue is really interesting in the framework of Oak Park because it has that sort of connection to Austin with the Soul City plan and then the Percival Julian streetscape, as well as the Frank Lloyd Wright Historic District. So there's a lot to do on Chicago Avenue, and I think signage that sort of displays that and gives that corridor its own ability to thrive, while then also sort of blending in with the village is like a two-pronged approach that would work well.
Thank you.
Okay, hello, Village Manager Kevin Jackson. First and foremost, I mean, just an awesome job on the presentation, very well laid out. I appreciate all the detail in existing conditions and evaluating the corridor. I particularly appreciate the insights around the underutilized parcels along the corridor. I think my question for you all would be, given that there would be a need to, you know, raise resources in order to acquire and get site control of some of those parcels, what would you envision sort of the starting priority for you know, those parcels along that corridor? Like, what would be that parcel that you would first recommend that we initiate action on as a catalyst?
I believe the 400 Chicago Avenue parcel on the corner of Chicago and Ridgeland, because there has been previous developer interest, so there might be easier to find someone else to help you develop that area. Is that? Yeah. Yeah.
Good choice. I'm gonna turn it over here because I could ask a follow-up question, but it might come here.
All right, Village Planner, Michael Bruce. Again, thank you for your presentation. Very well done. My question was actually answered when Jonathan asked his question, so I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
I guess I'll ask my follow-up question. So the site there on 400 Chicago, you're right, there's been fits and starts with interest there to develop that parcel. And we experienced recent history, a lot of pushback on, you know, going up in the air. And I noticed that one of the concept that you showed like a 3-story structure. So despite some of that community feedback that you probably reviewed, you yet still would recommend that it's probably a good idea to go up, affordable housing, mixed use. But I just want to hear your reaction to that. How would you deal with like the anticipated pushback that we may receive from the historic preservation interest around there?
We're going to give you both. Yeah. Well, I think a very important thing is a large part of the pushback is just the aesthetics of the project. People will tend to look at these large, dense projects and they see this big, boxy building and go, "That's not my neighborhood." But if you approach it with a design that's more integrated in the neighborhood, something that the architecturally and the shape of the actual lot itself fits more like with a suburban character, I think people would be more receptive to it. You know, a boxy 4/1 with the extremely postmodern, modern sandwich cladding just doesn't match a Frank Lloyd Wright home. So something that's more in character with the neighborhood might be more amenable.
Thank you.
building.
Right, next we have Sutton section.
Great.
So that's what they were thinking.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us all today. My name is Margot. With me are my colleagues Luke, Connor, and Cam. We'll be presenting Making Madison, which is a corridor revitalization plan for Oak Park. Just a little bit about our team. We're a team of 15 Masters of Urban Planning and Policy students, as you know, from University of Illinois, Chicago. And yeah, we were really happy to work on the Madison Street corridor, which of course runs from Harlem Avenue to to Austin Boulevard. You can see here a bit of our outline for the day, but it's really important to note this is a high-level overview of all the work that's in our plan, which will be linked at the end of our presentation. We hope you all can give that a bit of a look. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to jump into a bit of the history. So in the 1920s, Madison Street was really a motor row of sorts. It was a hub for auto dealerships and service hubs, and that continued through the 1960s, where at its peak, Oak Park had around 16 car dealerships and 72 service stations, and many of those were concentrated on Madison Street. We saw a bit of a transition from the auto industry in the 1980s to industries like healthcare and government affairs, housing, and essential services, and we see that continuing to play out to today, right? We have a lot of new developments on Madison Street. We know it's an area of interest for you all today, so we're excited to jump into our plan here. Just in our first look at Madison, we wanted to figure out how Madison is differentiating itself from the rest of Oak Park. So of the over 53,000 residents in Oak Park, nearly half of them live a half-mile buffer around Madison Street. So we see that racial demographics are quite similar to Oak Park overall, with a higher proportion of Black residents in certain tracts on Madison and a higher share of renters and younger adults. This makes it a prime area for really inclusive growth, which is great. As far as land use, we have a lot of mixed-use parcels totaling around 4.3% of the land area within this corridor. And Oak Park has around 24,000 housing units. 61%, as you all may know, are owner-occupied, and 39% are renter-occupied. We see a mix of housing in all of Oak Park, and that's really reflected, of course, in the corridor, from townhomes to the co-housing that's currently being developed on the corridor, to senior housing, supportive care, affordable housing, and market rate housing. We'll be talking about those throughout the presentation today. I'm now going to hand it over to Luke, who's going to talk about the planning process.
So Studio 262 took a four-pronged approach to the planning process, breaking down our major work responsibilities into quarters. So first, we conducted preliminary research, which included examining existing conditions and historical data. This helped us form the foundation of our plan's narrative. In quarter two, we visited Madison Street, where we took initial photographs, conducted a business inventory, and just got a general sense for the corridor's atmosphere. This helped us develop our vision, values, goals, and strategies, while we also decided to segment Madison for the purposes of our plan. Quarter three saw us considering what had worked well up until then and what areas of our plan needed additional recite and in-search. We collected more data and revised the narrative of Making Madison. Plan production composed most of the fourth quarter, but also important were the development of our theory of change and our strategic implementation guidelines, both of which we'll discuss more shortly. So our vision for Madison Street is, we believe, challenging, aspirational, but above all, attainable. Ultimately, we envision Madison Street as a dynamic corridor that supports intergenerational wellness, enhances the economic fabric, and serves as the civic anchor for the village of Oak Park. Rooted in our vision are three strategic core values that help guide our recommendations. Fellowship focuses on creating a more welcoming built environment, finding innovative solutions to various challenges, and solidifying the corridor's role as a steward for the village. Adaptability recognizes that a wide range of services define Madison Street. It is at once a crucial connector and a destination for residents and visitors alike. Vibrancy acknowledges a diverse mix of small businesses, cultural programming, and street activity that lend to Madison Street's lively communal atmosphere. Closely linked to our values are our evaluation criteria. These help structure our goals and align their higher level rationale to the specifics of our strategic recommendations. First, equity. Will this goal serve to benefit all residents? Next, resilience. Will this help the corridor withstand changes in economic and environmental conditions? Local ownership. Does the goal improve communal belonging and add to residents' feelings of having a sense of agency over their space? Connectivity. Do efforts enhance mobility and accessibility to key destinations? And lastly, innovation. Does this goal enable forward-thinking strategies that lend to economic vitality? So there are many strategies that one can employ when examining future potential conditions. We executed what's called a theory of change, which seeks to determine why a specific change is sought after within a particular context. Essentially, you map backward from your initial objective all the way to the problem that you want to solve. And please excuse the text-heavy slide here, but our desired impact here is our vision statement, while our challenge is to help Madison Street achieve its full economic potential. Intermediary steps include identifying appropriate activities, the short and long-term impacts of those activities, and more, all of which are detailed further in our plan. So to make our vision a reality for Madison Street, we segmented the corridor both functionally and geographically into what we call the 4 Cs. The care segment at Madison's western end is dominated by Rush Oak Park Hospital and other healthcare services. The central segment offers residential and essential commercial services for residents. The civic segment at the corridor's eastern end is home to Village Hall and other civic facilities. And finally, the comprehensive segment features cross-cutting goals that cover the entirety of Madison Street. So first we have the care segment, which extends from Home Avenue to the border of Forest Park at Harlem Avenue. Rush Hospital and other healthcare facilities are located here. This area of Madison offers the village a unique chance to continue enhancing community well-being while also furthering economic development. Our first goal here is to create a hub for healthcare innovation. This includes targeting life science industry growth and increasing employment opportunities for village residents. The life science industry employs highly skilled and educated workers, which aligns nicely with Oak Park's existing workforce. Such companies need specialized infrastructure similar to that of a large hospital like Rush, making the care segment an ideal location for such companies. Meanwhile, almost 90% of Oak Park's employed workforce worked outside of the village as of 2022. Establishing career development pathways for both healthcare and life sciences could help the village keep its educated workforce working within Oak Park. The care segment also has a chance to address additional community care needs. First, an urgent care facility would provide locals with quick access to basic healthcare services when mildly sick or injured. And this graphic here shows locations for that potential urgent care facility. This should alleviate pressure from Rush's emergency department in turn. Furthermore, the share of residents aged 65 and older are growing faster than any other age group within the village. There are also 3 senior living facilities within or very near the care segment, while the daycare center King's Kids Academy, also on Madison, is set to expand soon. Therefore, we recommend the village co-locate child care and elder care programs, perhaps at one of these locations here, which would help address social isolation, improve mental health, and create cost efficiencies. And now my colleague Connor will take over to discuss the central and civic segments. Thank you.
The central segment is not only centrally located, but serves essential needs for residents living on and near Madison Street. Recommendations for this section include strategies to enhance housing opportunities and strengthen local retail mix. Our first goal in the central segment is to expand affordable housing options. The central segment should be prioritized for new affordable housing development because of its proximity to essential services and its capacity for greater density. Increasing affordable housing in this area will expand the customer base for retail businesses, boost the local economy, and help local employers attract and retain a diverse, stable, and productive workforce. With 43.9% of renters in Oak Park currently cost burdened, this has a disproportionate impact on low and middle income households, making the need for a broad range of affordable housing options a necessity in the village, including workforce housing for middle income residents, like the nurses at Rush and teachers at Fenwick High School. Oak Park can prioritize the development of workforce housing options on the corridor by partnering with nonprofit and private developers, use of the plan development process, the Housing Trust Fund, and the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, and engaging with local employers to understand employee needs. To further strengthen Oak Park's policy toolkit in promoting affordable housing, the village can stabilize funding for the Housing Trust Fund and amend its inclusionary housing ordinance. Our second goal in the central segment is to enhance retail business mix. Recent business relocations show that the central segment remains a desirable location for commercial activity, but it currently lacks smaller, community-oriented retail that fosters connection. To address retail gaps, the village can start by addressing data gaps. Right now, village data doesn't include important information like closures or unlicensed businesses. A detailed, annually updated database, including information like business type, age, and location, can help identify market gaps, target investments, and visualize business trends. With new, in-depth information on the service and spatial gaps within Madison's retail business mix, it can tailor retention and attraction incentives to reflect on-the-ground growth opportunities and community needs. Madison Street's eastern third is home to Village Hall, where we are all, as well as a diverse set of small businesses that showcase the corridor's vibrancy. In the civic section, we propose a civic campus and another business incubator. Our first goal for the civic segment is to create a lively civic campus. Proposed renovations to Village Hall provide an opportunity to develop a long-term strategy for redevelopment of the areas surrounding Village Hall. This map displays the vacant and underutilized parcels surrounding Village Hall, each representing an opportunity for transformative redevelopment. Oak Park could identify redevelopment opportunities and issue RFPs that promote cohesive, civic-oriented design using sustainable materials and promoting uses like business development or community space. This provides a little visual of what part of that civic campus may look like. But this civic campus can be further activated by hosting public events and art that drive foot traffic to Madison Street and foster a stronger sense of place and identity for the corridor. Our second goal for the civic segment is to create a business incubator. The 2024-2034 strategic plan from the Oak Park River Forest Chamber of Commerce recommends creating a small business and entrepreneurship incubator. You'll hear a lot about business incubators, but we recommend locating it on Madison Street in proximity to this new civic campus. Again, taking further inspiration from Boxville and Bronzeville, this hub would offer drop-in services, workshops, and counseling to support startups and small producers. This space could also host a small business revolving loan fund, offering small, flexible loans to businesses unable to access traditional credit, and could also serve as a space to host a new Madison Street Business Association to serve as an advocate for local business needs and concerns. With that, I'll pass the baton to Cam to discuss our comprehensive recommendations.
All right, so this is our comprehensive section, which encompasses strategies that reach through the whole corridor. So the first goal in this section is to encourage denser mixed-use developments. The picture on the left is the site of the future Keystone Apartments, which was formerly a vacant church, so a good example of an underutilized lot. This development has a few zoning exceptions, including lower parking minimum, a height allowance to allow it to reach 5 stories, and also some changes to setback requirements. So we would recommend codifying these types of zoning exceptions, as well as waiving the permit fees and shortening the permit process for affordable housing development to increase flexibility for developers and also streamline the development process. All of this would encourage mixed-use development like the existing Grove Apartments on the right, which has affordable housing on the top and then retail on the bottom. Another strategy to encourage denser mixed-use developments would be to incentivize more efficient parking development. As you all probably know, parking is a bit of a hot topic in Oak Park, so more efficient parking makes it easier for folks to enjoy Madison in a safer way. Reducing the parking minimum and adopting downtown Oak Park's current 70-foot height maximum would encourage integrated parking garages like the one at Maeve on Madison and discourage unsafe and costly parking lots, which Madison currently has a lot of. This would maintain Madison as a thoroughfare for traffic, but also make it safer and more enjoyable for residents and visitors. Our next goal is to implement anti-displacement measures. This is a social vulnerability index map of Madison. The Social Vulnerability Index compiles measures like income, race, education, and others to determine where vulnerable populations live. As you can see, Madison residents are pretty high on this index, especially compared to the rest of Oak Park. So implementing anti-displacement measures alongside development would ensure that all residents can live and thrive on Madison. Some ways to do this would be implementing a community land trust and a complementary home ownership cooperative to ensure that land on Madison stays affordable. A community land trust is a nonprofit, community-based organization that owns and stewards land for the common good, removing it from the speculative real estate market. So tenants can buy and resell this land below market price. And then a limited equity housing cooperative would allow residents to purchase homes at an affordable price, combating the lack of affordable options in Oak Park as a whole. Our next goal is to enhance transport equity. Madison is relatively disconnected from the transit options in Oak Park, being a little over a half mile from all of the train stations in Oak Park. So this goal aims to equitably expand safe and effective transportation. This is a map of our proposed shuttle route and divvy stations, which would be focused on connecting the low-income and workforce residents to the rest of Oak Park and beyond. The divvy bikes would allow residents to utilize those bike lanes on Madison and also provide last-mile connections to transit. Madison is a pretty busy street, and residents in a survey complain about noise and traffic. So, So traffic calming measures like curb bump outs, protected bike lanes, and widening the sidewalks would keep those noise complaints down. And then also in the central section, we would recommend implementing parking in the middle of the road, which would act as a traffic calming measure, but also could be used as programming and event space. And then our final goal is to implement green infrastructure to combat the effects of climate change. So Madison Street has limited tree cover, and it has the least green space in the whole village. So we would recommend implementing parklets or small parks on some of those vacant lots to reduce the surface temperature and increase the amount of permeable surfaces on Madison to prevent flooding. We'd also recommend reinstating Rain Ready Oak Park, which incentivizes property owners to implement green infrastructure on their property for a greener Madison Street. Now I'll pass it off to Margot to conclude.
Great. Well, we know you all are very engaged and community members are very engaged. So engaging with stakeholders is nothing new to you all, but Oak Park should really continue to engage with Rush Oak Park Hospital. They are on Madison Street, really essential organization over there, as well as the future Oak Park Economic Development Corporation. Our plan has a full implementation matrix on page 53 of our plan, which will detail not just the goals and strategies, but also the evaluation criteria that we use to evaluate, obviously, all of those goals. And with that being said, key takeaways here, want you all to know to prioritize funding strategies for the Housing Trust Fund and business incubator space, adopt zoning amendments where possible, invest in mobility enhancements, as we discussed, and also implement those street calming measures. That's all we have for you all today. As promised, here's the QR code to the plan. Thank you so much for your time and for having us, and we're here for any questions.
One thing I would like to note is that as they mentioned, they essentially presented a summary of the plan they developed, so that 60-page plan is up there, and I will leave one copy each of that, plan with the village, so you can refer to it. Now let's go to the Q&A.
All right, first, thank you again for a wonderful presentation, very informative. I have just a couple of comments. One is that I appreciate, and this is true for the other presentation as well, the thought of how to add that green space and that permeability into a really tough space like Madison that doesn't have a lot of open space, and how to incorporate that into plan. The other comment I had is, well, two, on that, and you said bring back Rain Ready. You'll be happy to know that we just call it Rainscapes now. And then the other thing is that we are actually actively working on an electric shuttle feasibility assessment. So I look forward to seeing the plan and the work that you did on the shuttle route. So thank you.
It's working. All right, so thank you all. Appreciate the presentation. Also, I love a QR code, so thanks for that. You talked about stakeholder engagement, and I think that, or I would imagine that through your research that you looked at some of the different engagement that has happened in the community. I was particularly interested in the discussion around your care segment. I imagine your research has identified that there's a lot of community engagement associated with any activity or perceived activity or potential activity associated with rush. And the community very concerned about how rush could impede upon, their sort of sense of neighborhood and community. And so I guess my question is, how do you envision engaging with those residents in a proactive and productive way to be able to enhance that care segment? And do you have any considerations for, whether there's a bigger interest, with the in growing the economic vitality versus the community feedback? Like, how do you balance those things?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your question. As the section before us mentioned, I think engaging with the community early and often is absolutely paramount here. I certainly think there's a balance to be struck between Rush Park expanding, but also maintaining that sense of community and neighborhood atmosphere for residents. So, one can look to potentially the IMD in Chicago, which might not be the best example, but nonetheless is an example. There are some, residential spaces and commercial spaces that are integrated within that. So certainly a much smaller footprint here within the care segment, but I think what it really comes down to is getting that feedback of residents that live within tracts very close or within the care segment. And see what they might be interested in as well. This could be a bit more qualitative in nature, but nonetheless, what are some ideas that you might have? Maybe having some plan-making workshops where you bring folks in and, they say, hey, this might look cool here, this might look great here, and it could be something as small as like a parklet or, just adjusting the bike lane to be behind the parking as opposed to in between the parking and the traffic. So really just comes down to making sure that their voices are heard. They have multiple chances to offer suggestions and feedback to some just suggestions that the village is making, obviously, as well. But again, communicating early and often and making sure that everybody has a chance to have their voice heard and bring about their own recommendations is important as well. So.
That presentation was really nice. I want to especially call out I feel like the very crisp, clear graphics that you used throughout it. I think it really did help the presentation overall just really stand out. The thing that I wanted to hear a little bit more about was you talked about amending the inclusionary housing ordinance. And you sort of mentioned that the idea of doing an amendment, but didn't really talk about like what the village would be trying to achieve in doing so. So I'd love to hear just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So our full plan includes our full recommendations for the inclusionary housing ordinance. But I think that'll have to be a two-part process, along with funding the Housing Trust Fund. I think right now, kind of the way that the inclusionary housing ordinance in Oak Park functions is it drives a lot of funding into that Housing Trust Fund. So once we're able to stabilize the revenue stream for the Housing Trust Fund, it allows the inclusionary housing ordinance to function more in promoting the development of that on-site affordable housing in the private developments. So specific changes that we were looking at was, one, lowering the threshold for impacted properties. We said 25 to 20. If you want to be ambitious, I think we'd take 15 even. Additionally, looking at scalable income requirements. So that would be something along the lines of, 10% of units at like 40% AMI, 15% at 60, or 20% at 80% AMI. But that can function, based on your own studies of, how that will impact development. Additionally, I think once you stabilize funding for the Housing Trust Fund, changing the in lieu fee, currently I don't think it's really in line with market costs, and it really incentivizes developers to kind of opt out of promoting on-site affordable housing development. I mean, even Evanston has a really high in lieu fee of, I think, like $1 million for like 4-bedroom apartments. You don't have to do that. I mean, even doubling it from 100,000 to 200,000, I think would promote more on-site affordable housing development in your market rate developments. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't have any questions. I just want to echo what Jonathan said. I thought that the presentation, the visuals of it were really, really strong. I really tied it together well. I really liked the representation you use for the values and the segments and things like that. So very creative, very clever. And I think one other compliment I would give too is just, you know, it's always kind of been difficult for me to figure out how to tie Austin to Harlem, right, along Madison. And I think the 4 Cs, I think, is a really clever, for lack of a different descriptor, word to do it. So thinking about it kind of in that care, that civic, central, and comprehensive, that really stood out and resonated with me. So thank you.
Well, I want to tell you, hey, great work. Good work, team. Just a couple of observations, not really a substantive question, but I will try to ask you a question. I just want to acknowledge the policy analysis framework. It really stood out to me, and someone whose kind of backgrounds in policy analysis, I appreciate the 4-quadrant approach, the commitment to establishing the vision, the values, and the impact statement right up front, and therefore, and then also the evaluation criteria. I also think that the comprehensive segment overlaying with the 3 segments was a bright idea, so I don't know whose idea was that, but I think that was really good. That was kind of novel. Appreciate the consideration around the vulnerability index and the and equity. So I guess I would ask, I mean, just being an implementer and understand, it gets the same question I asked the last group, where do we start? What gets us going?
If I may, and then I'll open up to the rest of the team, but I think really just starting small, maybe even just having some community feedback on some of our suggestions here and say, hey, what do you think is the most, what are some things that you would really like to see about Madison? I think, you know, there's already some good foundations there, such as the bike lane that traverses the entirety of Madison Street. You know, there's some areas that are ripe for redevelopment, and there's already some, you know, larger mixed-use developments, such as the senior housing, American Living, I believe its name is, and the one, I'm forgetting its name, Belmont Village, I believe. So, you know, maybe incorporating some more of those developments as well, you know, and just seeing what folks along the corridor are looking for. So I think starting small, but making those large impacts, such as bioswales, which, you know, don't cost as much per se as, you know, widening the sidewalks or adding a bunch of tree canopy, could be a good start. So starting small and then building out from there, I think, is probably the best approach. So, but I'd like to open it up to the rest of the team if they have anything else to add.
Yeah, I think to the point of the whole corridor being connected through that comprehensive lens, it is really important that we get that feedback and that connection with Oak Park, with Rush. And maybe that is drawing folks from Rush here to the village to have conversations with community members. I'm sure that has happened before, but I think that's a good first step, just making sure that the stakeholders are engaged in the right ways at the right times. Yeah, I think that, of course, is any first step, so happy about that.
Okay.
Yes, Kim.
I think if you're thinking about like which strategy or which goal to implement first, I would recommend some of the affordable housing amendments, just because there's already such a focus on affordable housing on Madison. So maybe improving that process would fit nicely into the framework of Madison already.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, once again, great job. Appreciate all the work you put into this. So what zoning ordinance changes you think you would recommend to incentivize putting more parking into each development?
Yeah, the two that I mentioned, the slight height increase, I think that Madison already has a pretty high height maximum compared to the rest of Oak Park, but just a slight height increase would encourage developers to include parking garages within their developments. And what was the other one? Sorry. Oh yeah, and then also a lower parking minimum, I think would be a big one, just because that would encourage developers to get creative rather than having these big open parking lots, which we learned throughout this whole process are actually very costly, even though they're easier to build, they're costlier to maintain. That is a big one as well.
Thank you.
So we'll, next is the Oak Park Avenue, which is north-south plan district, and will be the Egan section. Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. It's really good to be here. We are the team for Oak Park Avenue. So starting out, getting right into it, we started with a clear step-by-step planning process. We assembled dedicated focus groups, defined roles, and set a clear purpose from the beginning, economic vitality. Then we took a deep dive into the corridor's realities, its assets, challenges, opportunities, and risks, using both hard data and local voices to build a full picture. Throughout it all, we followed a structured, strategic methodology to stay aligned with Oak Park's goals. We explored scenarios, crafted big ideas, and continuously measured our work against a set of clear metrics to make sure we stayed true to the vision. Analyzing the existing conditions of Oak Park Avenue was a vital step in our assessment of its strengths and weaknesses. Through exploring the existing conditions of the Avenue's 4 distinct nodes, we came to an understanding of a shared dilemma across the corridor. But to truly imagine a thriving future, we first had to face the hard questions head-on. How do we add vibrancy and density without losing the character of its historic neighborhoods? How do we breathe new life into commercial nodes? And how do we stitch together a corridor divided by a major expressway into one with a strong and shared identity? These questions are inextricably linked through their deep roots in economic vitality. Without vibrancy and density, it lacks a daytime population. Without new life, there is no shared excitement about the corridor. And without a complete connection over the highway, there is a physical and mental desert, a barrier for citizens to engage with businesses on the opposite side of the highway. On the screen, we listed some of the community wants taken from the Oak Park Community Pulse Survey. These wants, such as having diverse nodes with different cultures and business mix, increased walkability and safety with spaces for leisure, and a commitment to affordable, dense housing, are among the biggest inspirations for our recommendations along Oak Park Avenue. Community feedback, our understanding of the dilemma on the avenue, and a critical study of the avenue's existing conditions became the heart of our work, and they led us to a shared vision. By 2050, we plan to build Oak Park Avenue into an absolutely world-class corridor, irresistible for families, business, and tourism. We lift the quality of life through prioritized lived experience and jobs, creating a unified identity of shared prosperity for the entire village. Our vision is not about maintaining existing conditions, but actively building upon them with big ideas. We see the economy as something deeply personal. It informs everything we do. And so we understand that to expand the village's tax base, support public services, and deliver on people's priorities to raise living standards in Oak Park, a healthy and vibrant economy is key to that vision. Every big idea within our plan serves an economic purpose: increased density, a new Southtown Innovation District, and a fully built-out Eisenhower Expressway cap. Density is our #1 economic priority. The entire stretch of Oak Park Avenue should be under active and continuous improvement. Because we are going for growth, and growth is not the enemy of character, it is how we believe we can honor the spirit of Oak Park and ensure it remains a vibrant, welcoming, and forward-looking community for generations to come. Oak Park is not isolated from the world around it, and right now, the world around it is going through a chronic housing shortage. To carry forward single-family only zoning to 2050 is unacceptable. Supporting people and businesses is central to Oak Park's ethos as a progressive community, and to accomplish this, Oak Park must build more housing. Retail follows rooftops is key to Oak Park's economic strength and supporting its tax base. Increased density is central to economic vitality. Proposed density increases will bring more people to do business in Oak Park, plugging holes in retail leakage, and circulate more money within the cash registers of Oak Park. Innovation is not a buzzword for us, but an economic principle. We want Southtown to take the lead as Oak Park's innovation district. We are ambitious about Southtown because Southtown exudes untapped potential. We see this potential because it is the southern gateway to the village. It has an existing retail core. It is well connected to public transit, and it is close to key medical institutions. Through engaging the community with new committees to take responsibility for their own village and incentivizing developers and other private sector entities, Oak Park will become the perfect place to kickstart an environment where startups never stop. Open for business like never before, Southtown is the most shovel-ready section of Oak Park and presents the strongest case to be made for developers. If we are serious about unlocking Southtown's economy and making life better for local residents, then a full expressway cap is long overdue and non-negotiable. It represents a powerful gesture of community healing, economic reinvestment, and environmental reconciliation. With the greater density and mobility that we are proposing, an expressway cap which functions as a park and public space is essential for not just communal well-being, but economic resiliency. Public realm improvements and economic success are inseparable, so we don't hold back in proposing ways that Oak Park can do better. This expressway cap is at the center of our public realm proposal and elevating lived experience for people and businesses. This is not only a plan for creating more wealth and jobs, but a plan to ensure a quality leap forward. This is not the same plan we presented at the midterm. This new plan has two new elements that were not present in the last one: lived experience and policy coherence. We are not presenting a transformation for transformation's sake, but rather we are presenting a thought-out, steady transformation with an implementation plan that delivers the certainty, stability, and predictability which will attract private investment and developers to carry out the heavy lifting. The time to invest in Oak Park Avenue is now. Land use as the foundation, tourism as its spark, and the public realm at its heart.
Thank you, Elliot. When we look at land use, we want to know what exists and is currently valued, as well as what do people want to do with it. Land use is the foundation of our commitment to economic vitality. It is inseparable from a strong local economy. So how does Oak Park want to build and invest for the future, and how can we set it into motion today? Community collaboration is consequential, so we took a look at the community responses and narrowed it down to scope that we used to build our recommendations and vision that could best lead Oak Park to a connected and vibrant village for a greater community. Oak Park Avenue has a built advantage. There's limited space, but that's a tool here. It's an asset. Smart growth principles is a toolbox of methods for planning. An example is mixed use, buildings, plots, public forums. There's also the ability to take advantage of compact design. Because at the end of the day, a built environment is about perception. We can talk about a concept endlessly, but how do we get it realized? We introduce a phased approach that ensures that growth happens sustainably for Oak Park Avenue. With 4 planned strategic episodes, this guide provides direction for key decisions, investment opportunities, and policy support. This allows both the village and the developers to navigate the process efficiently and effectively. The first episode is Southtown by 2035. The Innovation District is expanded, 3 parking garages are added, the expressway cap is built, and increased housing stock supports the development oriented for transit. The second episode is Madison by 2040, where new retail and housing mixed use are incorporated with a signature plaza and 2 supporting parking garages with liner retail. Hemingway by 2045 is with a sensitive infill to protect the historic character and 1 added garage. And last but not least episode is Roosevelt and the transitional sections of the corridor. This is a lighter but important touch to stitch together the avenue and solidify its connectivity, adding appropriate and diverse housing and additional commercial space to meet the needs and wants of the residents. Oak Park Avenue has the ability and the potential for purposeful, targeted planning around transit, be it the L, the Metro, or the Expressway, where everyone can benefit. We designed for scale, walkability, and a range of housing choices. Oak Park has a strong sense of place. We want to preserve that, but we also want to build on it. Expand it so a larger community can grow, share, and all call it their own. To seamlessly time the episodes, we execute strategies such as block-based planning. When we prioritize scale in our plan, we have the big picture with episodes, and we have block-based to ensure that development occurs at speed and in context. One step is significant parcel consolidation. Planning and developing at the block level rather than parcel by parcel unlocks greater potential for cohesive and large-scale growth. It enables coordinated infrastructure, flexible site assembly, and more attractive investment opportunities. This signals readiness, reduces fragmentation, and speeds up development timelines. Oak Park Avenue is a contender for jobs, innovation, for pride in their community. Our job is not only to idealize and plan growth, but to support it. Our metrics show that we could add 26,000 in population, 5,000 new jobs, and 14,000 new homes. With that, we ensure the needed accompanying infrastructure. Smart parking investment sees 5 new garages built, eliminated parking minimums, and additional public assets created. There's no perfect, always applicable formula for economic growth. Every business is different and distinctive, both in what they need and who they are. We propose a change in land use to form-based zoning. It is currently implemented in the Roosevelt Node, and we encourage its expansion of policy across the entire corridor. Form-based zoning focuses on a design standard for the building form rather than an ordinance on its use. This allows the village and its residents to create a design standard that aligns with historic and placemaking principles of Oak Park, but encourages a variety of development that creates a more resilient and diverse economy. The phased episodes are possible by timing the increases in height limits for each node. By building up, we encourage the sense of place that makes the avenue so loved, its walkability and density that offers more opportunities. We raise the cap from 45 to 55 feet across the corridor, and at key nodes such as Madison and Roosevelt, we raise the height from 60 to 85. We also extend Southtown's height to max to 85 feet as well in order to prepare for more housing and more vibrancy, more rooftops to support an expansion increase in retail and dining. Another implementation we strongly recommend is to expand the boundary of the Southtown Business District, not only to signal its readiness towards becoming a front-running innovation district, but to capture land for investment and its full potential. During this process, we often joked about the moniker of Oak Park Avenue being the gateway to the community. But the potential and advantage that this street has to the greater community is undeniable, and how Oak Park and its citizens choose to shape it sets a tone for the future of the community as dynamic, resilient, and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. It's good to be here. Our vision for Oak Park Avenue's newfound public realm centers around 3 themes. Bridging mobility gaps, decades in the making, with a highway cap, transit bicycle improvements, and pedestrian safety measures. Fostering an organic but cultivated sense of place with new outdoor space and public enrichment efforts, as well as connecting people with local talent through art. These themes guide our public realm recommendations and together present an opportunity to transform the corridor into a vibrant place to be. Central to our vision for a renewed public realm on Oak Park Avenue is the Eisenhower Highway Cap, spanning from Grove Avenue to Euclid Avenue in the Southtown District. The current 250-foot wide abyss, carved by the Eisenhower Expressway, divides the village and hinders the potential of the neighborhood. Our proposed highway cap is indispensable in beginning to heal the economic and community wounds of decades of disconnection caused by the highway. PACE 311, the CTA blue and green lines, and Metro provide critical transit services to the corridor, connecting it with itself and the greater region. We have some concerns, however, about the system's accessibility, and we recommend that the village consult with transit agencies PACE, CTA, and Metro to ensure that adequate amenities are provided for bus and rail stations, which include bus arrival trackers, shelters, and benches, and that the village ensure ADA compliance of the new proposed Oak Park Avenue Blue Line station. Oak Park recently approved a long-awaited Vision Zero action plan to improve the safety of the village's roads for everybody who uses them. We recommend that the village take robust measures to ensure the safety of vulnerable road users along the corridor, especially with the proposed increase in residents and foot traffic from our changes. And engaging with our proximity to the Oak Park Arts District, we propose a new program, Art on the Avenue. Working with local artists, this exciting new village program will help residents and local artists cultivate a strong identity for the corridor and each node within it, fully utilizing the new public space and greenery freed up from Vision Zero and land use improvements. Art on the Avenue is open-ended. Building facades, crosswalks and intersections, community boards, bridges, street corners, and more. These are all the canvas for our local artists to express the identity of Oak Park Avenue through their medium, whether it be poetry, paint, dance, or song. In front of me here is Giddings Plaza in Lincoln Square, a quaint family-oriented neighborhood in Chicago with many of the amenities and services Oak Park residents asked for in the community survey. I think that Oak Park needs a Giddings Plaza. Along the avenue, compact but vibrant public space within close proximity to key destinations is concentrated in the north, leaving Southtown without a square, plaza, or gathering spot. We propose transforming the ample space that already exists on the avenue's right-of-way, but is not fulfilling its best use. Instead, realizing these spaces to their full potential as public space that connects residents to their community and fosters public and civic life. This public space could take the form of small parklets, plazas, or parks, knitting residents and businesses together into a complete corridor. On normal days, they provide space for lounging and relaxing, residents and visitors engaging in civic life instead of isolated at home. But on special days, these places become vibrant centers of joy and emotion. This is enabled by our proposed public spaces program, which legalizes and streamlines the process of businesses acquiring parking lane parklets, provides guidelines for publicly and privately owned spaces, organizes a task force for grant obtainment, and simplifies the process of soft programming efforts like markets, small performances, and shared street events. Essential to building and maintaining our new vibrant public realm are the necessities. Among them, signage, visual markers, seating, and gateway features. We propose connecting the avenue with a cohesive visual identity, highlighting the distinct features of each node of activity along the corridor. Visual markers which reference the character of each node are key to defining district boundaries and creating a collective consciousness of what Oak Park Avenue means, while supporting the local economy, community, and businesses through increased recognition of commerce hubs. Policy proposals that would enable such transformational change include our public spaces program, as well as a design standards guideline which further formalizes key design and land use requirements like parking placement and promotes building features that create vibrant public space. Canted corners, minimal setbacks, pedestrian scale signage and lighting, and parking and access management restrictions. Many Americans long for a complete public realm in their villages and cities, traveling across the world just to have a small taste of great urban form. Our proposals for Oak Park Avenue, the heart of the village, deliver a legendary experience for residents, businesses, artists, and tourists alike, and elevate the avenue's public realm to the heights of some of the most famed streets in the world. It's only a matter of time before more and more people choose Oak Park to live and visit.
Thank you, Jake. Culture is the spark of economic vitality. One-of-a-kind architecture, performing arts, and innovative gastronomy provide visitors and residents with exceptional and memorable experiences that keep them coming back. Increased tourism means increased foot traffic for businesses within Oak Park. Cultivating a pro-entrepreneurial experience within the village strengthens Oak Park's existing small businesses while welcoming others to set up shop. Oak Park should invest in retail space to rent out on short-term leases to entrepreneurs. Westtown and Chicago saw success with a similar program, their pop-up project. Removing barriers for street vendor operation and simplifying permitting and licensing processes also opened the door for a diverse economy of local businesses to thrive. A pro-entrepreneurial climate cannot exist without a pro-worker climate. Businesses that invest in their workers' well-being experience lower turnover rates, providing stability to workers and higher quality service to customers. Implementing policy reforms, as well as providing affordable housing to accommodate all income levels, will signal that Oak Park is not only open for business, but also a supportive and vibrant place to work, live, and play. By utilizing current and developing new cultural assets, Oak Park will become a destination for travelers of all kinds seeking a genuine, unforgettable experience. Investments in arts and cultural resources culminate in a greater diversity of experiences for everyone who enjoys the Oak Park community. Current events within the village draw over 100,000 visitors annually, boosting the local economy and overall quality of life. However, current programming is seasonally dependent. Year-round programming will diversify Oak Park's tourism appeal across all seasons, drawing residents and visitors to celebrate within the village all 12 months of the year. Existing cultural assets along the corridor provide the basis for community events centered around those assets. For example, the high concentration of healthcare professionals presents an opportunity for a health and wellness event, especially during the socially dormant season of winter. The Hemingway District's literary heritage acts as a basis for a Midwestern literary festival, which will celebrate regional intellectual heritage through readings, workshops, and topical programming. The multi-use 61-mile Prairie Path Trail, which sees over 180,000 users annually, will be extended through Southtown and across Oak Park Avenue, acting as a gateway through strategic greenway development, wayfinding signage, bike hubs, and multimodal connectivity, as well as an opportunity for bike-oriented events. Travel patterns are being increasingly influenced by social media, which promotes budget-friendly, localized travel experiences. We propose the development of a hostel in Southtown to accommodate these diverse travelers coming to the village, from Prairie Path bikers to Lit Fest poets. The boutique hostel business model increases revenue per square foot, benefits local businesses through storefronts and programming, and will act as a community hub for tourists and residents alike. To finish off, we want to leave you with a tangible return on investment. Adding density, vibrancy, and zeal to the village's distinct nodes will increase the daytime population in Oak Park, starting the process of creating a strong circular economy. While Oak Park Avenue already has a large business mix, with different sections possessing character that separates each from the last, stitching Oak Park together at the I-290 divide will increase the population venturing to the other side of the highway. Connectivity is important for growth. Further, we ran the numbers based on square footage and conservative tax estimates and found that our plan would generate $85 million in new annual revenue if fully implemented. That is 2.7 times the current tax revenue and represents the cumulative impact of expanding land use, improving the public realm, and increasing tourism, and how much economic vitality can pay when thoroughly implemented. Let us show that we didn't just plan for growth, we planned to make the village money. We not only aim to sell you a vision for the future, but to deliver a revenue model to fund it. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the Village of Oak Park to practice our planning skills in a real-life setting. We will now open the floor for questions.
All right, maybe one of these we can go around the other direction. Thank you very much for the presentation. First of all, I love the wordplay, so I appreciate the avenue. I'm a resident of the Arts District, so I really appreciated you connecting it to that nearby neighborhood, which doesn't go all the way through the community. I'm also the mother of a middle school child, so I also like the conversation about third spaces, because I think that's so important for people who don't have driver's license yet or money of their own to have a place to be. You talked about the accessibility of the transit along the corridor, and I mentioned in one of the other ones that we're working on a feasibility study around a shuttle. So I was curious to see if you saw any opportunity or role that something like a shuttle could play in that corridor.
Well, I think Oak Park Avenue, we're lucky because PACE 311 operates along Oak Park Avenue, north-south, right? So as far as introducing a new shuttle service, because it's already served by PACE, I would argue that improvements to existing infrastructure, improving accessibility through just making it easier to either rest at a bus stop, or get there in the first place. Those are the biggest things that we would propose in this plan, because we do have that connection at PACE 311. And of course, the frequency and reliability of PACE 311 is another story. And that is something that would have to improve if Oak Park Avenue were to become a cohesive corridor that you could get from north to south in a relatively short amount of time. The village consulting with PACE, coordinating an increase in frequency and reliability of service, in tandem with the improvements to accessibility that we recommend in the plan. We also have a full recommendation for the CTA Blue Line station, which is actually deceptively not ADA compliant. There's a ramp, but it is not an ADA compliant ramp. Putting these all together, I believe, and I believe our team believes, would be more feasible and easier implemented improvements along the corridor.
Thank you.
Good presentation, guys. Thank you. And especially, I think, Drake, if you don't decide to be a planner, you could be like a voiceover person. You know, like as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to fix the Oak Park Avenue. So great job with the urgency, communicating that to us. You did that really well. So I appreciated sort of the phased approach to identifying the timing of investment in different parts of the community along Oak Park Avenue. I did have some curiosity, you know, that with Roosevelt being the last to kind of get that redevelopment or support from the community, with Roosevelt being maybe traditionally the area that has seen the least amount of investment from the community. So just curious about equity concerns with regard to that and how you considered equity and DEI into your programming.
Yeah, certainly we took a look at that, especially since like with the expressway, like you often see people call it like South Oak Park and North Oak Park, and then even some people who live around the Roosevelt area, they call themselves like North Berwyn, and that was obviously seen in the community responses as well. Like sometimes people feel like they're underserved by 3 municipalities, and so that was interesting when we were thinking about like groceries and different commercial opportunities of like how these people are served. It's also one of the reasons we heavily like recommend the CAP, just as like also third space, but also like sort of how do people feel about where they live in certain places, and there's not as much green space in like around the Roosevelt corridor, and yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I know also that we, a big part of the framework for understanding economic vitality on Oak Park was retail leakage. And I think one of our concerns with Roosevelt Road was among jurisdictional concerns, because, of course, just to the south of Roosevelt Road, as well as, I believe that Roosevelt is an IDOT road, but I may be wrong. But regardless, dealing with the road from a variety of different perspectives would require multi-jurisdictional coordination. So I think we put Roosevelt Road a little bit further in that timeline because of those jurisdictional requirements, as well as addressing the fact that the Oak Park Avenue Economic Vitality Plan partially was to address retail leakage. And I know that along Roosevelt Road, for example, south of Roosevelt Road, there's a lot of business types that I don't believe are legal in Oak Park Avenue. And I think that there was a little bit of a concern about retail leakage along Roosevelt Road, people going to the south of Roosevelt Road as opposed to going to the north of Roosevelt Road, where our proposed changes would be. To sum it up in a little box, that's where I would put it as well.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate the fact that you brought in some of the direct citation of the survey results in the presentation. You referenced it again as we were sort of like having conversations in response to that, which I think is great. I also really appreciate the connections that you're making between like local services and the tax base and economic vitality, and you really emphasize that repeatedly, sort of the beginning and the end, which I thought was a really nice element. I was a little confused about the combination of all that added parking in Southtown and trying to think about like how that actually fits into that space, along with the elimination of the parking minimum. So can you talk just a little bit more about how those recommendations fit together?
I think it goes into the vision that we have of Southtown becoming much more of a dense, much more of a habitable place. I mean, more people inhabiting in that area. And just because there were so many responses that went into, oh, it's hard to park, like no park, Oak Park, and things like that. And I think it just went into making sure that in the future there are not such problems, and that people are like, oh, it's fine to pop down there and go grocery shopping for this and pick up errands for that, or I don't have to worry about where I'm parking my car or anything like that. But it was interesting. We had to kind of wrestle and like compromise of like a heavy investment into public like infrastructure and like transit, as well as managing, well, people do like owning cars. They do like driving them. And so, yeah, I think it went into going into also what parking garages can be. Essentially, you can have green roofs, you can have liner retail on the bottom floor, and just sort of a reimagining goes into our idea of it being an innovation district.
And just to add to that, a lot of the development that we're proposing will be consolidating or instead of surface lots. So one reason that we do suggest parking garages is because of that parking is just going to be a denser form of parking, as Cass mentioned, you can utilize the parking garage for retail and other uses.
Well done presentation. Thank you very much. I think one of the questions I had when you're talking about the importance of accessibility in the CTA station especially, right? So they're, we work with them, but they're a separate agency. And so with a lot of problems beyond Oak Park, right? So how do you, theorize or think about kind of twisting the CTA's arm in explaining why this is so important versus something that's happening in Evanston, as an example?
Well, I think what's great about the Blue Line station specifically is that, of course, as we all know, the Eisenhower is undergoing an expansion project, and the Blue Line is undergoing an improvement project as well. So now is the best time, really, the earliest as possible that we can get to CTA, because they will be rebuilding the Oak Park Avenue Blue Line. Actually, they'll be moving the platform closer to Oak Park Avenue. So naturally, it will be a little more accessible. But sort of saying, hey, CTA, you're going to be rebuild this station. Right now, it's not ADA accessible, and this construction is going to be done. I'm sure there's some sort of ADA plan going on, but utilizing the leverage, and especially that Southtown will have as a new commercial hub with a highway cap, sort of utilizing the newfound leverage that Oak Park has, and making that at the forefront of the decision-making process, the consultation process with CTA.
Okay, team, great job. A lot going on here, and I appreciate sort of the aggressive approach to trying to grow the tax base and really putting a spotlight on that. A couple of questions on the density side. I guess one question would be, in a community like Oak Park, how do you balance the need from your point of view for greater density to grow the tax base with the historic preservation interest of this community? So that would be question number one. And then question number two, internally in our organization, probably over the last year, I've been trying to create a little more interest in Southtown. So it's striking to me that there's so much energy coming through this presentation about Southtown, and I'm really interested in why you believe Southtown is shovel-ready.
I can speak to your first question. So as we mentioned, growth is not the enemy of character. We can definitely densify while keeping the unique character of the corridor and Oak Park as a whole. As another group mentioned, you could definitely propose developments that incorporate architectural styles or, blend into their surroundings. We're also going to be utilizing underutilized lots. And we're not going to say, hey, you build a 30-story skyscraper, in Oak Park. we're envisioning kind of more gentler density. So it's going to be denser, but it's also not going to be out of place. And if someone else there.
And then, yeah, speaking to Southtown, we thought Southtown has just a ton of potential, mostly from its status as a potential transit-oriented development location. I mean, it has great access to the Blue Line. With the proposed CTA cap, there would be a bridge for the communities to venture south if they live north, venture north if they live south, so like address that equity gap that we were talking about earlier. But mostly, if we want to grow an area that is near transit and start looking at some parking reform, the only feasible place along Oak Park Avenue to do that is Southtown, just because of its transit access.
Got it. One more thing, Mike, and I'll turn it over to you. Wow, I don't recall like what the period of time is for growth to adding 26,000 individuals to the population, but man, what an awesome goal. And so I think in my mind, I envision Oak Park being able to add at least 10,000 more people at some point over a period of time. 26,000, that's quite a bit. So I'm not going to put you on the spot to answer that question, but I definitely look forward to digging into details and learning more about your assumptions there. So with that, I'll turn it over. Oh, and one more thing. I think culture is the spark. All right, so Mike.
All right. Again, thank you, and nice presentation. Specifically Southtown, where would you start with the parking structure along Southtown?
So I would say we definitely take a look at the plan. We definitely delve into a lot more detail about our specific recommendations for the corridors and the nodes. I think for the parking garage, we will utilize a surface lot, once again utilizing a underutilized area, increasing density, in this case parking density, but then also utilizing that as a catalyst for retail or other uses.
I think it's also important to note that the location of the parking garages won't be, for the most part, along Oak Park Avenue. They will be on streets adjacent to Oak Park Avenue, because one of our goals was to create a vibrant public realm, of course, a pedestrian realm, and access management is a significant part of that. It's also outlined in the Oak Park Vision Zero Action Plan. The location of those parking garages will be somewhere where they won't be right in the middle of everything. And I think that was one of our concerns for the existing surface lots, especially within Southtown. You have a building facade that's interrupted by these large parking facilities. Sort of closing those gaps, moving the parking elsewhere, that's the fundamental sort of framework for how we decided within the plan where our parking structures will be located.
Can I ask one? I have one more question. So we spent a lot of time, heard a lot about the importance of the cap and the Blue Line improvements. Obviously, federal funding for infrastructure improvements, including rebuilding the Eisenhower, is challenging. IDOT has been working on that now for many years. CTA is in a rough financial place. What does this plan look like if you can't get those improvements in the foreseeable future?
Well, I will say that the section of Oak Park Avenue that's going over the Eisenhower is slated for a widening. The sidewalks, not the right-of-way. So the actual bridge that goes over the Eisenhower within the same timeline as the widening and expansion of the Eisenhower will be widened as well. So although it is indispensable that the highway cap is a significant part of this plan, if it is not implemented, there will be pedestrian realm improvements that are a part of the Blue Line station improvements, as well as the expansion of I-290. So regardless of the highway cap being implemented or not, we will still have significant pedestrian improvements through enlarged sidewalks and the new Blue Line station. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot. So we will take a very short break, actually. We're a little bit running behind the schedule. So we'll pick up at 4:15, about 5-minute break. Next section, we're going to have the downtown presentation and also I-290 presentation.
Actually, how does this work? It's okay. It's just a tiny screen at the bottom. You want to do the fan fighter? You want to move here? The fan doesn't blow as much. It's really cool.
I know. The feels like oh, from the train.
Actually.
Oh yeah, you and Andy. Yes.
Okay.
It's cold in here. I know. I was actually expecting it to be kind of hot.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, it's air conditioning on. Over there. Yeah, sure. You can. Okay, we have only a couple minutes before we start, so please take a seat.
I knew they were gonna. I knew that was gonna happen. Okay.
That's part of the.
Yeah.
Do you have all the presenters? All right, we'll start. So let's take a seat. All right, so we have the second half of the presentations. We have 2 more presentations left, and next up on the schedule is the downtown district plan. You have all the presenters, right? Whenever you're ready.
Hi, everybody. We represent the Lake and Marion Collaborative. We're a planning firm dedicated to Oak Park's downtown strategic plan, growing Oak Park's roots. My name is Ava.
My name's Nicholas.
My name's Matthew.
My name's Annabeth. We'd like to begin today by acknowledging that the University of Illinois Chicago and the Village of Oak Park rest on traditional and ancestral land of multiple Native nations. We recognize and tribute the Native and Indigenous peoples of these areas: the Three Fires Confederacy, Potawatomi, Odawa, Ojibwe nations, and in the Village of Oak Park, the Menominee, Sauk, Miami, Peoria, Kasasia, and Kickapoo. Native tribes are a part of Chicagoland's past, present, and future, and it is our responsibility to listen to Indigenous voices, honor their rights, and work together towards equity and inclusion. We'll start today by talking about our vision statement, our planning process, and the existing conditions and history of Oak Park. We'll then introduce our recommendation and catalyst sites, and we'll finish up with our implementation plan. Our strategic plan and recommendations are catered to Oak Park's downtown. This area stretches from Harlem Avenue to Oak Park Avenue and from Pleasant Street all the way up to Ontario Street. In approaching our study area, we center our plan around a downtown that is accessible, creating a welcoming street environment connected to Oak Park's transportation links. A downtown that is vibrant, with a variety of businesses catering to a diverse audience of residents and visitors. A downtown that is equitable through upgrading downtown's infrastructure to serve all people. And finally, a downtown that embraces its history, incorporating Oak Park's rich architectural legacy in the fabric of downtown. Our vision of downtown Oak Park is an equitable, people-centered place with accessible features that maintains a strong connection to the Oak Park community and beyond. This vision highlights Oak Park's history and business diversity while maintaining room for year-round entertainment opportunities, accessible transit, pedestrian-friendly streets, and third spaces. Oak Park has a strong foundation, and today we aim to highlight key opportunities that could build on or enhance the village's existing strengths. Now I'm going to hand it over to Nicholas to talk about our planning process.
All right, thank you, Ava. In order to guide the creation of our plan, we went through a process that's provided us with a framework of establishing a workflow, including identifying the scope of the plan, understanding the context in which the neighborhood exists, identifying issues with the area, establishing future scenarios, and assessing alternatives. Our planning process can be split into 4 different parts: learning, listening, planning, and recommending. So let's start with learning. Our initial existing conditions assessment consisted of both conventional research and multiple field visits. We visited downtown multiple times on various days of the week and different weather conditions in order to build familiarity with the neighborhood under different conditions. It was through this process that we decided which locations would be our catalyst sites for improvements and give us a better understanding of the neighborhood's identity and spatial context. But as useful as extensive research and field visits are, creating a plan without community input simply replaces ignorance with arrogance. Listening to stakeholders in the community has given us a more direct dimension of insight and has provided us with the information needed to make more relevant and targeted recommendations for our plan. For the creation of the plan itself, our process was based on weekly consultations among our team using various methods of organizing our ideas based on our observations, outreach, and research. One key method we used to organize our ideas was creating a SWOT analysis, SWOT standing for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We use this analysis of downtown to identify areas where the neighborhood is doing well, where there are opportunities to improve, and where there are problems that may threaten the neighborhood's long-term advantages. The recommendation portion was the final result of this process, where we compiled information we gathered through research, field visits, and stakeholder engagement into a clear, tangible vision for downtown's future. Moving on to the existing conditions. In the planning process, it can be easy to lose track of the fact that downtown Oak Park is already a great neighborhood with solid foundations. The neighborhood has over 150 years of history as an urban center and a transportation hub. This foundation has given downtown Oak Park multiple unique advantages over similar communities in Chicagoland. Unlike most suburban commercial districts, downtown is a walkable neighborhood served by multiple public transit agencies, and the main thoroughfares in the neighborhood, including Lake and Marion, are aligned with vibrant businesses and attractive streetscapes. That being said, downtown also faces obstacles that may present long-term challenges if these issues are not addressed. Many of the current issues facing downtown currently revolve around affordability, as downtown Oak Park has some of the highest residential rents in the region, with rents surging over the past decade due to an undersupply of housing and insufficient affordable housing legislation. Office space is considerably more expensive in downtown Oak Park compared to nearby municipalities like Lake Forest and Elmhurst. These affordability issues create a barrier to entry that threatens neighborhoods' diversity and vibrancy by pushing away new residents and commercial investment. The crisis of affordability in downtown regarding housing in particular has also led to a significant rise in downtown's houseless population, creating a strain on existing services and causing people experiencing houselessness to seek shelter in places like libraries and train stations. While issues surrounding affordability threaten the diversity and vibrancy that make downtown an inviting neighborhood, there is tremendous opportunity to address these challenges and to create a neighborhood that is better for everyone. To understand where we believe downtown is heading, we have identified different scenarios in which downtown may find itself a decade from now, based on different levels of intervention informed by our analyses and planning framework. We scored scenarios based on our 5 evaluation metrics, those being equity, connectivity, affordability, identity, and vibrancy, to identify the best path forward for downtown Oak Park over the next 10 years. A stagnant downtown is a result of little to no intervention from the village and key stakeholders. In this downtown, affordability concerns are exacerbated, making it more challenging for current and potential residents to build a life in downtown Oak Park. A lack of significant investment in transit infrastructure continues to negate the positive impacts of transit accessibility, which leads to continuing problems regarding cleanliness and perceptions of safety within CTA and metro stations. The high parking minimums for new developers are increasingly a barrier to building more housing units. Commercial vacancies may take a long time to fill, and new businesses hesitate to commit to Oak Park because of high rents and lack of explicit support and guidance from the village. Some of those vacancies are filled by national chains, which contribute to the local economy, but take away from the unique charm of the district. In this scenario, a stagnant downtown fails to capitalize on favorable conditions such as transportation, engaged community, and unique small businesses and history within walking distance, yet remains a unique urban destination in the western suburbs. On the other hand, an empowered downtown has emerged as a model for urban development. In this downtown, significant investments in bicycle facilities around the neighborhood has made it safer for cyclists to get around and connect to a larger bike network spanning both Oak Park and Chicago. In this scenario, there has been significant collaboration with Metra and the CTA to invest in their station as a multimodal gateway with increased focus on accessibility and wayfinding that's made the area more navigable. The village has implemented a number of new ordinances requiring affordable housing minimums for new developments and eliminated the fee in lieu option. The village has also established a streamlined support system with public and private partnerships to assist unhoused people in transitioning to stable housing. The business environment has improved thanks to a streamlined licensing process, which has made it much easier for small businesses to get a permit quickly and efficiently. The village has invested significantly in the development of its small businesses through the establishment of a business incubator centrally located in the formerly vacant Marshall Fields building. Public spaces are lively with events and programming year-round, and underutilized parking areas have been transformed into new plazas and green spaces. In this scenario, an empowered downtown has achieved a renewed spirit of community and capitalized on their existing favorable conditions through these efforts to increase connectivity, affordability, and vibrancy. These efforts will be based on the recommendations we created, focused on the catalyst sites we identified, which Matthew will explain in greater detail.
Thank you, Nicholas. Right. Now that we've seen what could be ahead for Oak Park, let's talk about how we can get there. In this section, we will talk about our key recommendations, highlights from our plan through 4 key strategic goals: supporting local businesses, delivering sustainable housing, enhancing mobility and connectivity, and strengthening the community. Furthermore, we acknowledge that downtown is already very built up, with few spaces left for new developments. However, in this challenge, we find an opportunity. We have identified 6 catalyst sites, key redevelopment locations that can have a visible and positive impact in the built environment towards the community. These catalyst sites are central to some of our recommendations towards our vision. First, let's talk about supporting local businesses. First, we want to echo a sentiment that we have heard many times from Oak Park stakeholders. Downtown is a flourishing business district, a desirable place to do business. However, that the village needs to step up and take more initiative to nurture this commercial landscape. To this end, we echo the Economic Vitality Plan's recommendation to establish a dedicated department for business recruitment and retention, supporting them through processes such as licensing agreements. Furthermore, we also recommend that the village take initiative and connect with present channels, such as through the Downtown Business Alliance, with struggling businesses to hear the pitfalls and hindrances that they have experienced in making businesses here in Oak Park. We also want to look ahead with our catalyst sites. We notice that there are underutilized locations that could be tantamount to Oak Park's future, especially downtown. Firstly, as we mentioned, the Marshall and Fields building that has long been vacant has a lot of square footage and pre-existing infrastructure promising for a mixed-use development, such as co-working spaces, small business incubation, and food courts. Furthermore, we propose pedestrianizing the underutilized Westgate Street into a plaza fit for outdoor dining to support the restaurants already here. We hope that these recommendations can contribute to Oak Park Village's intuitive activity into the business landscape and diversify the commercial landscape already in downtown. Next up, delivering sustainable housing. Here again, we want to emphasize that downtown is a desirable and attractive place for many to live, and yet housing stock and affordability currently pose as key challenges towards Oak Park capturing these demands. We recognize that Oak Park has already put in great effort into their housing trust fund for this purpose, and we encourage them to do further. For example, we propose that downtown have its parking minimums lowered given its proximity to transit so that new developments will have less barriers to entry. Furthermore, we are also expressing our concern for affordable housing here. We recommend that the village explore creative affordable housing options and revisit their policies, such as reducing the 25-unit threshold to qualify for affordable housing and to expand the affordable housing ordinance beyond the quarter-mile limit from transit. Here, too, we've identified a key catalyst site, the shopping plaza on Harlem and Lake, with plenty of surface lots and yet relatively underutilized throughout the week. Here we see the potential to upgrade the lot into a dense mixed-use development with allotted affordable housing units. We hope that these proposals can help Oak Park capture the demand of residents who want to live downtown while also keeping those who already are here from being displaced. Next up, enhancing mobility and connectivity. Here we again want to point out a key asset to Oak Park, perhaps uniquely great to downtown, the combined Metra and CTA train station. Here we propose that Oak Park focuses on creating a connected downtown and also making it a desirable place to linger and enjoy. We encourage and recommend that the village continue cooperating closely with Metra, especially since the recent operational handover, so that the place is managed properly. For example, we propose expanding ADA accessibility on these stations and also revitalizing the station into a place that can serve as a welcoming multimodal gateway. Furthermore, we propose streetscaping projects for bike infrastructure, creating protected bike lanes between North and South Boulevard so that bikers can be safe in downtown and expand the options available for viable transportation here. Furthermore, we also recommend pedestrian support, such as through better wayfinding through signages, upgrading crosswalks to modern accessibility standards, and safer lighting. We want to acknowledge that some of the key assets in downtown has been neglected. At this moment, we also want to emphasize our points on sustainable housing. We propose that the village continue looking into sustainable rehousing options so that those that are unhoused can have a means to transition to a better life. And so key assets downtown may be shared together and revitalized into a beautified, strong future. And to that point, I want to leave out the last goal, strengthening community, to our friend Anna.
Lastly, our goal of strengthening community focuses on creating vibrant spaces and opportunities for downtown Oak Park's culture and public engagement towards a stronger, unified, and diverse community. Downtown already has strong assets like Scoville Park, Austin Gardens, and the public library. These are well used and well loved, but we also heard a desire from residents for more year-round activity and more places to simply be. Right now, downtown can feel quiet in the winter, and there are limited options for people to gather casually, particularly young people. To address this, we recommend the village build on the success of existing events like Thursday Night Out and Oktoberfest by expanding seasonal programming and creating more consistent community events throughout the year. These events support local businesses while also giving people a reason to come downtown beyond shopping and dining. We also see a need for more third spaces. These are the kinds of places where people can spend time without needing to spend money, like indoor seating areas, public gathering spaces, and youth-friendly environments. Third spaces support social connection and help build a stronger sense of belonging in downtown. At the same time, we encourage the village to consider how downtown can be more supportive of unhoused residents. This includes exploring shelter options and connecting services in ways that feel safe and inclusive for everyone. We believe these steps will help foster a downtown that feels welcoming, connected, and truly reflective of the Oak Park community. For our implementation timeline, first we encourage the village to consider internal feasibility. This means identifying which recommendations are most realistic to start with and establishing a timeline based on insights from our plan. Not every idea has to happen immediately, but outlining next steps can help the village prioritize and build momentum. Next, we recommend identifying and engaging key stakeholders. Many of these groups are already deeply involved in the downtown's future. This includes the Village of Oak Park, the Business Association Council, and the Transportation Commission. Bringing them to the table early will help build buy-in and shared responsibility. We also suggest continuing to measure and monitor success over time. This can include tracking new business openings, pedestrian traffic, community event participation, or bike lane usage. Regular evaluation will help guide adjustments and keep progress on track. To give a few examples of what implementation could look like, we've identified sample actions in both the short and the long term. In the short term, we recommend establishing an economic vitality department with support from the village and the Business Association Council. In the long term, we recommend building protected bike lanes along North and South Boulevard, with the village's Transportation Commission playing a key role. These are just the starting points, but with a clear timeline, strong partnerships, and a commitment to ongoing evaluation, the village can bring this vision for downtown Oak Park to life. And I'll pass it off to Ava to close us out.
As we look ahead, we imagine a downtown Oak Park that not only honors its rich history, but actively shapes a more connected, inclusive, and vibrant future. By supporting local businesses, delivering sustainable housing, enhancing mobility, and strengthening community ties, our vision seeks to root change in the values that matter most to Oak Park residents. A successful downtown Oak Park is possible, and with thoughtful planning, community input, and intentional growth, it's already within reach. Thank you for your time, and we open up the floor for any questions.
Sure. I like the idea of creating a area over Westgate. I like that idea. So what were some of your recommendations on parking minimums for the downtown? Did you have any?
Sure. So one of the things that we noticed is that downtown has a few surface lots that are currently underutilized and a wealth of parking garages. So we believe that parking minimums for new developments are likely unnecessary as of this moment. A lot of the parking garages, we should also mention, are in very close proximity to each other. This is notably a key advantage of our specific study area, unlike the others that have corridors. Downtown is a rather dense development. So again, we recommend that parking minimums could be eliminated as a means to reducing barriers to any new developments, especially to increase the housing stock here.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, great job, team. I really appreciate the focus on the catalyst sites. You know, given the world we live in, limited resources, it's incredibly important to have a focus. That said, and I appreciate the areas that were actually targeted, and I appreciate the acknowledgement of the area around the shops and the parking lots and so forth. Something that's definitely been on my mind. I noticed your context or your boundary for the downtown area, though, goes all the way over to Oak Park Avenue. Do you guys, in your planning, have any ideas around Oak Park Avenue in that area? Any opportunities there? And particularly because the village is contemplating a significant investment in the streetscape there, I wonder if you guys had any thoughts to share about Oak Park Avenue.
Sure, I can speak again on that. This is, again, I want to relate this to our entire department over here. We discussed a little bit with the Oak Park Avenue group, and we thought that they were already doing a lot of great work, so we shifted our focus a little bit away from that. However, if we may, one key thing that we did notice is that Oak Park Avenue already has great bike infrastructure, and our north-south boulevard connection, we hope, could be connected into part of that. It's not just about making bikers safe in downtown, it's about connecting bicycle infrastructure all around the village, maybe even to some of the longer ones in Chicago, the Chicagoland area in general. So yes, bike infrastructure to connect people and make bicycling safer, and also expanding Scoville Park's potential for winter events. We noticed that there were lots of folks skiing in the little hill there. There's potential there.
Okay, great. I did have a related question to that, so thank you for giving us that. I'm going to go ahead and pass it along.
Thank you all for the presentation and the thoughtful ideas. One question that kind of came to mind for me is you spoke about engaging stakeholders in that area, and I think that, you know, looking at it from where I sit, I think that that is already a very engaged area. So how do you kind of bring in some fresh perspective and fresh voices for maybe some of those folks who aren't as engaged in that area and some of the programming and infrastructure of that area?
Yes, so, I mean, obviously, you're right, it is a very engaged area, just in general. And we did reach out, of course, to Business Alliance and other businesses in the area as well. But I think regarding reaching out to more people, just because it is downtown, it is the village center, it's the transportation hub for not just Oak Park, but neighboring municipalities as well. There's definitely the opportunity there to reach a wider audience, to sort of do outreach to the village as a whole, and to, of course, other neighboring municipalities as well, just because it is such a central node that there is going to be sort of greater interest, we believe, geographically compared to some of the other smaller commercial districts in the city.
If I could add to that, boiling it down to one word or two words, interagencial cooperation. We can work with Metro and CTA. We could work with neighboring municipalities like River Forest. Of course, we can work with other commercial corridors. Downtown is definitely engaged, but we think that one key area that it could get even more good input and strengthen its community is to embrace the fact that it is a central node, so it needs to embrace those neighboring regions.
I appreciate the presentation. You know, a few things really stood out to me as real positives in it. One, I really like the Austin Garden expansion idea. I think that's interesting. You know, the little lot that's there along Marion is sometimes lost. So that I thought that was really interesting. I also really like the north-south bike boulevard extensions that you proposed. Recognizing that it's not just the built-up commercial areas, but it's also the neighborhoods that are around it, and thinking about how, especially as downtown Oak Park, it's important to have connections that feed into it. So I really appreciate that. And then finally, I'm just going to note that, again, you did, I think, a nice job integrating the challenges that the village does have and continues to wrestle with around folks who are unhoused, especially in the downtown area, and the work that we're always doing internally and with community partners to try and help support those individuals as best as possible. So thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation. I especially liked your aspirational artwork. I thought that that was really beautiful, and whoever did that or created that, great job. Thanks. I want to connect you with our communications department. No, I'm kidding. So I was going to talk a little bit about the unhoused, but I think I'm going to go a different direction because Jonathan brought that up. I noticed that you all mentioned a business incubator as well. And, of course, that's been a running theme throughout a lot of these different presentations. And I guess I'm very curious, if I know that your focus was on the downtown Oak Park area, just as everybody was focused on their own corridors. But have you been swayed by, other groups' presentations about where the best place for a business incubator could be within the community? The pros and cons of putting it into a more developed area versus an up-and-coming opportunity?
Yes, so regarding the choice of the old Marshall Fields building, we chose it primarily because it is sort of a local landmark. It's on a very prominent location, the intersection of Harlem and Lake, and just it has such a unique asset with just all the space as used as a department store, a bookstore. And so sort of just going back to us mentioning regarding downtown Oak Park being sort of a larger, more central node of a commercial district relative to other corridors discussed earlier, we believe as well that it's because it's more of an attraction and more of a regional destination, there should be sort of a larger capacity facility for an incubator.
In other words, an incubator needs to already have a vital economy, and downtown's already one of the most vital places in Oak Park.
Okay, I'd love to see the follow-up project where you guys have that debate, because I think there's a lot of ways to go with that, but I appreciate the response. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for the presentation, and I regret asking to go the other direction because Kira's questions are always too good to follow. I do like the artwork, and I also wanted to mention what Jonathan did of appreciating the bike infrastructure, and on one of your slides you talked about bike parking too, which I think is important because we are thinking about bringing people into the downtown. I wanted to ask what other sorts of opportunities you may have seen as you were doing this to incorporate climate resiliency and sustainability elements into this part of the village.
To be honest, climate resiliency was always in the back of our mind, but wow, there was a lot going on in downtown. So in terms of just page count, we couldn't fit everything we wanted in here. But if we could share some ideas, again, we want to emphasize the possibility, the potential for dense mixed-use developments, and one that has a diversity of transit options. A lot of the other groups, I very much appreciate their their adaptation solutions to risks for flooding. But here within our plan, we want to mitigate risk, especially locally in Oak Park, right? We want to be able to have places that are dense and have plenty of spaces available for green spaces, biospheres, etc. And so we don't have large impervious parking lots. Furthermore, we want to reduce carbon footprints. So having more efficient means of transit is another step in that direction.
Yeah, and sort of just to elaborate a little bit on what Matthew said, I think regarding our climate resiliency, a lot, because of downtown Oak Park St. Charles, a transit hub, a lot of what we were thinking of in terms of sustainability was transportation-based. So really just encouraging transit ridership through rejuvenating the CTA metro station, building on the bike infrastructure, especially North and South Boulevard, to connect it to the wider Oak Park and City of Chicago bike network, as well as also building on the village's EV initiative. I know the village is very aware about the percentage of emissions that comes from transportation, and that's a big priority regarding their overall sustainability plan. So also in things like increasing the amount of electric vehicle infrastructure in downtown as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, and Matthew, feel free to follow up on me regarding this. We did definitely acknowledge the age of a lot of the commercial infrastructure in downtown. Like we made a lot of notes that this district overall was developed in the age of the railroad, late 19th, early 20th century, and that downtown as a whole has been through its ups and downs with competition from other suburbs with more auto-oriented commercial areas. And we did look into the various initiatives, both successful and unsuccessful, that the village has implemented in the area, like the pedestrianization of Lake and Marion Street, which was less successful, but then also the TIF district that existed up until, I believe, 2018, and that was a big driver of new residential and commercial development in the area. To be forthcoming, most of what we focused on regarding the commercial environment in downtown was mostly on the business environment overall. I mean, obviously, we did mention the old Marshall Fields there, which is this very historic commercial building, unique asset, and our plans for a business incubator in there. But overall, our main focus with commercial in downtown was primarily on creating a more competitive business environment.
So we are to the last presentation. Do you have handouts? All right.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian.
My name is Alex.
My name is Rachel. My name is Christina.
And here we are at the final presentation of the semester. Over the past 4 months, these 15 students from the UIC MAP have worked closely to analyze existing conditions and address long-standing challenges along the I-290 frontage area of Oak Park. We observed 3 target areas, Zone 9, Southtown, and Art District, due to their strength as designated commercial areas and potentials to drive economic growth. This is part of our planning process. In our studio, we conduct field survey and found that the target corridor supports a robust business ecosystem. With, as you can see, health and wellness, professional services, and retail are the top 3 business types operating in the I-290 frontage area. Meanwhile, the housing landscape is dominated by single-family housing, which comprises 84% of the housing stock. In contrast, mixed-use and multi-family housing accounts for only about 15%, indicating limited residential diversity and opportunities for density. While this section benefits from direct access to the Blue Line and ample parking, we identified clear opportunities for transit-oriented development and place-making. However, challenges persist. The I-290 divides the community, while pedestrian and bike infrastructure remain limited in our target areas. And we also identify threats such as disjointed infrastructure ownership and lack of funding. So what is the plan? We present One Oak Park. Our vision is to unify Oak Park's neighborhood to create a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable village. To achieve this, we have 3 guiding goals: promote mixed-use development and grow the tax base through TOD, provide equitable access to Oak Park's resources, and last but not least, protect green practices and prioritize people-centric development. So, from the west to the east, from Zone 9, Southtown to the Art District, we invite you to explore our plan and key recommendations to bring this vision to life. Now I will give the podium to my friend Alex for Zone 9.
We approached Zone 9 by looking at some of the key strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that the area presented. And one of those was a large disused industrial site located off of Harlem Avenue. This is currently an eyesore, but we feel that with a proper intervention, we could turn it into a hub for regional economic growth. For this, we presented a few key alternatives that we feel can accomplish this. But first, I want to talk about some Day Zero policies that we feel will complement any alternative that we suggest. The first is an improved pedestrian experience. By upgrading the visibility of crosswalks, the addition of speed bumps, particularly near an early education center, we can improve the residential experience to boost foot traffic and improve the local economy overall. Our second policy is tax breaks for new developments. This will attract new businesses and, if they're carefully targeted, can improve the equity and environmental impact of Oak Park. Our first alternative is a revitalized industrial use. The area is of suitable size and has a history of such a development. It will provide jobs to local residents, as well as increasing the tax base of Oak Park, as well as its economic diversity. It does come with a few drawbacks. Key among these is environmental pollution from either noise or potential emittance and truck traffic. This can have a potential negative impact on the local area. Our second alternative is a hotel. This transit-oriented development will synergize well with tourists with the Oak Park's tourist industry and draw visitors to sites like the Ernest Hemingway Museum and Frank Lloyd Wright Home. Oak Park currently lacks a hotel, and adding one will provide new jobs to local residents, as well as increase outside visitors to Oak Park, who can then spend their money on local businesses. Its proximity to transit nodes will connect visitors to Southtown, as well as the rest of Oak Park, and encourage them to visit the entire village. Our final alternative is a clinic. A specialized service like an oncology or a cardiology service can provide high-quality jobs to local residents, as well as draw further visitors to Oak Park. While there are a variety of medical uses inside Oak Park and in I-290 in general, we found that long wait times for these services indicate that there is demand for another service. We evaluated alternatives based off of the 3 goals that drove our project: improving the economy, connectivity, and sustainability of Oak Park. We found that alternative 2, the hotel, provided the best mix of these 3. With regards to the economy, A hotel can act as a force multiplier for other businesses by driving tourism and visitors to other businesses. With regard to connectivity, the hotel's proximity to transit nodes will encourage people to visit the rest of Oak Park and draw the community closer together as a whole. And finally, with regards to the environment, environmentally friendly construction, in this case, we plan on using mass timber framing to construct the hotel, will both limit the carbon emissions associated with construction as well as the overall cost of the building. I now turn the project over to Rachel to discuss the Arts District.
Thank you, Alex. For the Arts District, we identified 2 underutilized sites for redevelopment. On the east and on the west, there are 2 anchor sites that can serve to draw people to live, work, and contribute to a strong and stable economy. On the west, this is currently an IDOT office space, and on the east, it's currently a gas station across the street from another gas station. By having an anchor on each end, we hope to encourage people to travel through the Arts District, bringing customers to small businesses along the corridor. Our third underutilized site is a lot on the corner of Ridgeland and Harrison. For each alternative, we are proposing a mixed-use development. This would be 5 or more stories with commercial on the ground floor and residential up top. We would like to see a portion of those units to be affordable. This large-scale development would increase density close to transit, contribute to Oak Park's advancement of affordable housing. In the Arts District, there is a prevalence of single-family housing on the north side of Harrison Street. This not only reduces pedestrian appeal, but it also reduces foot traffic between the Arts District and Southtown. We propose a policy that would connect homeowners looking to sell with developers to turn these single-family homes into more dense and more flexible housing. These are a few examples of the current pedestrian experience along the north side of Harrison. And these are examples from Bucktown and from Pilsen of what this could look like. For our proposed streetscape, this will create a safer environment for both pedestrians and cyclists. It will convert some space to outdoor dining while still retaining some of the existing parking. It also adds a 10-foot wide bike lane that will accommodate bidirectional travel. Additionally, it will add trees to contribute to Oak Park's existing tree canopy and also to separate cars from people. For our first alternative, on the east side, we propose a parking garage, and on the west side, we propose a food hall. As mentioned earlier, these anchor sites aim to bring more people to the area. As our streetscape removes some parking, this would compensate and also add additional parking. Parking could be validated by local businesses, which would incentivize people to visit different spots along the corridor. The food hall would be good for small businesses because of the lower barrier to entry. We would like to include incentives for minority and women-owned businesses. Finally, this space could be used for community events. For our second alternative, on the east, we propose a movie theater. This could generate property and sales tax and also employment opportunities for residents. Additionally, it could drive evening traffic to the area and contribute to the nighttime economy. On the west end, we propose a mixed-use development with the first floor being retail and office space up top. For our third alternative, on the east, we propose a grocery store. While there are a few big box grocery stores nearby, there are no smaller boutique-style grocery stores like a Trader Joe's, for example, and additionally, with greater density, there's greater demand for groceries. On the west end, we propose a performing arts center. This would be a mixed-use art gallery and performance hall with housing above. It would offer a gallery space for local artists as well as an all-season community space. For our evaluation of our best alternative, we chose alternative 1, which was parking garage and food hall. This would provide the most opportunities for small businesses, create strong anchor sites to draw people to the area. It would also contribute to Oak Park's sustainability goals as the new developments would be LEED certified. Now I'm going to hand it off to Christina, who's going to talk about Southtown.
Great, thank you.
Our final focus area is Southtown, located along Oak Park Avenue on the southern end of the village. The north side of Southtown is home to restaurants, shops, and a grocery store, while the south side of Southtown is primarily home to personal and professional services. Southtown, as we know, is bisected by the highway, but has great potential for transit-oriented development due to its proximity to the Oak Park Blue Line station. While Southtown is denser than the area immediately surrounding it, it still is not dense enough to unlock the full potential of transit-oriented development. Currently, most buildings on the north portion of Southtown are only 1 to 3 stories tall, and buildings on the south portion of Southtown are 2 to 4 stories tall. The Village of Oak Park has already zoned Southtown as neighborhood commercial, which allows for a maximum building height of 45 feet. We suggest increasing that to 60 feet to allow for 5-story buildings. This is a photo of a development at the corner of Oak Park Avenue and Van Buren. That's a great example of the development already coming to Southtown. And this is an example of the type of development that we could see in addition to that if we increase the height to 60 feet. Oak Park has already added density along metro lines and CTA lines downtown, so adding additional density to Southtown is in line with Oak Park's overall housing policy. Denser housing would also help support businesses already in the area and new businesses that we're hoping will come to the area. Currently, Southtown lacks public spaces. We suggest adding flexible public space to Southtown to diversify the types of activities that can take place there. In line with Oak Park's Vision Zero policies, we imagine redesigned streets that improve the pedestrian experience and add space for bicyclists. For the Oak Park Avenue overpass specifically, we propose wider sidewalks, dedicated bike lanes, and a median with space for trees. Our marquee intervention for Southtown is a partial cap of I-290. Highway caps have become popular throughout the United States. This is an example from Pittsburgh, where a park was added on top of a freeway interchange. And this is an example from Columbus, Ohio, where commercial space was added to both sides of a freeway overpass. This reminded us of a famous bridge in Florence, Italy called Ponte Vecchio that has commercial and pedestrian space on top of a bridge. We believe that Oak Park can join this exciting trend and act on decades-long plans to cap the Ike. We evaluated 3 alternatives for the highway cap. The first alternative was a cap with businesses on both sides of the overpass. This would require adding additional utilities to both sides of the road. Our second alternative was to only add businesses to the west side of the cap, and on the east side of the cap have an expanded transit plaza. And our third alternative was to have a cap with park space on both sides of the road. While this provides the most options for public space, it provides very little mechanism for Oak Park to recoup any of the initial investment of building the cap. So based on this, we evaluated these alternatives and we decided to do a combination of alternative 2 and 3. The benefits of this combination include fewer businesses compared to alternative 1, as we want to avoid adding too many businesses to the area while Southtown is still building up, where we know that some areas of Oak Park do have vacancy rates, so we want to make sure we're not adding too many businesses all at once. This combination also maintains a continuous street wall on one side of the overpass, which will help draw pedestrians through from the north side to the south side and vice versa of Southtown. And additionally, it allows for public green space that is currently lacking in Southtown. Here you can see our preferred alternative with park space on the west side and commercial space on the east side of the cap, as well as a transit plaza to enhance the experience of people riding the bus or taking the Blue Line. The park space provides plenty of room for new trees, which will help reduce the noise of the highway and create a sense of place on the cap. The complete streets design maintains space for cars while adding bike lanes and wider sidewalks. The flexible space provides places to gather. We imagine children performing impromptu plays, people eating outdoors, and community events. During the spring and summer, food trucks and farmers markets can take place on the cap, and similar to the food hall that we selected for the Arts District, this allows small businesses that may not be ready for a brick and mortar location to start establishing themselves within Oak Park. We are excited to unlock the full potential of Southtown with denser housing, vibrant public spaces, and a reconnected physical environment. And I will pass it back to Brian to close out.
We provide these recommendations from the 3 target areas as an integrated solutions to connect and empower the corridors in the frontage area of Oak Park. As you can see, Zone 9 with the intervention on their site functions, Art District with the improvement on their commercial facilities, and Southtown with the innovation on their design features. As we close our presentation, let us draw inspiration from one of Oak Park's most visionary minds, Frank Lloyd Wright, who once says, "Human race built too many walls and not enough bridge. We built most nobly when limitations were the greatest." In that spirit, let us continue to plan boldly, build inclusively, and bridge community. We believe the plan that we propose here are to connect and what we envision in one Oak Park. Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you, and nice presentation. So, again, focusing on Southtown, the Cap the Ike is kind of central to a lot of your suggestions. Any thought that creating economic space on that would take away from the north and south retail opportunities?
Yes, we were definitely conscious of that, and that's why we chose not to add businesses on both sides. But I hear what you're saying, that even with adding them on one, it's like 10 new storefronts, which is a lot of storefronts to add. So I think that's why we suggest pairing it with increased density in Southtown, so that you're bringing new residents to the area that can support new coffee shops, new restaurants, new retail, things like that. And we think that the construction time that it would take to get the Cap done with the new retail would give time for some of that density to start at the same time, so that they're kind of paired in their timing.
Thank you.
Okay, team. Hey, great presentation. I really appreciate the frame, the One Oak Park and economy, connectivity, and sustainability, with an emphasis on the sustainability piece. The question related to public space in Southtown. So I think I would just ask if the CAP project is, far out into the future, did you guys consider any opportunities to create more public space in Southtown in the absence of relying on the CAP?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think even if the Cap doesn't happen, we would still want to do the streetscape improvements that would make it safer to walk and bike across the overpass, because currently the sidewalks are very narrow and cars go very fast. We did talk about, at one stage in the planning process, we looked at potential other locations for little plazas where people could gather, but we didn't end up including those in our final plan because we opted for the park space on the west side.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to compliment you on kind of the presenting it in a way of having a menu of options. I thought that was really easy to digest and easy to follow. I thought each of you did a very nice job of kind of presenting that and explaining the whys and the why not. So really well done.
I want to echo a little bit of what Dan mentioned. I liked especially the clear evaluation structure on how you walked us through the different options that you considered and sort of why you landed on something as a particular answer or solution or preferred solution. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the idea of converting existing homes along Harrison to commercial spaces. Especially, I know some of your compatriots earlier talked about the accessory commercial unit idea and maybe why you're recommending sort of full conversion as opposed to something like that.
Yeah, so I can take that one. And just kind of to clarify, it wasn't to commercial, it was converting the single family housing on the north side of Harrison to missing middle housing. We already noticed that the Arts District has a strong variety of small businesses, so we didn't want to necessarily add to that, but we did want to add density, and that's what we were proposing with our infill plan. Yes, thank you.
Great presentation, thank you. I also liked that sort of frame and evaluation that we got to see how you were thinking. I think that your Zone 9 proposal was maybe the most interesting. Zone 9, of course, is so underappreciated that it doesn't even have a business district name, right? Like, Zone 9 is like not that attractive. But I am curious, you know, I could, so one, we are putting in another hotel in downtown Oak Park, interestingly. So we are expanding. We do know that that's a need in the community. You know, I'm thinking about the hotel space. I definitely see the connection to transit, you know, some things close. But I also, Zone 9 doesn't have a lot of connectivity to the rest of the community and some of the maybe more cultural or, you know, the assets that exist that people travel to Oak Park to visit. And so I'm just curious how you evaluated like the context of Oak Park and a hotel really in what is sort of like a, I wouldn't say an isolated, but a space that is not directly connected to a lot of sort of economic, you know, businesses and other things.
Yeah, that was a concern that we had. Another, I think, aspect that would kind of make the hotel work is its connection to the entire region, like kind of with the CTA Blue Line, with its proximity to Harlem Avenue, kind of a major thoroughfare. It could also be a site for local business gatherings, conventions, things of that nature. And also we feel that potentially with working with Pace to maybe increase frequency of the route on Harlem Avenue, that can kind of increase the hotel's connectivity to the rest of Oak Park and kind of like drive that area.
Thank you. And I appreciate everyone, all of the groups' sort of faith in our ability to work with all these community partners and bend them to our will. Government can be hard, right? But we do try to partner with folks.
All right, very nice presentation. I want to compliment you on the logo, the One Oak Park logo. I just really like it. It's a style I appreciate. I love that sustainability made one of your kind of 3 pillars that you were looking at and was part of the evaluation for all the projects, and considering the, you know, the materials and the efficiency of the buildings that are being proposed that might be, you know, added or renovated through this. So thank you for that consideration. I mentioned already, I'm a resident of the Arts District, so very interested in that, and I'm just going to advocate we don't need a parking garage, but a grocery store would be really nice. Yeah.
Questions from the audience? Right, thank you. So this will be the, this concludes the this course, but yet you're not done yet, students. First of all, you still have the reflection essay due on Friday, is that right? So don't forget that. And also I recommend a couple of things you should do, which is to review the plans of the other sections, and your section as well, and compare the approaches, planning approaches, processes they use, and how that reflect in the end product, which is final recommendations, how that made differences. Another thing you should do is to apply the rubric of evaluation that you used for the assignment to, if you remember, you were asked to review the plans and apply that to the other sections plan, as well as your own plan, to kind of critique your plan weaknesses and the strength of your plans. That will be extremely helpful, right? Now, like to thank you very much for the village staff for just spending so much time with us and providing the very valuable feedback to us. And yes, would like to say a few words.
Yeah, Professor, I just want to reiterate our gratitude for the opportunity to partner with you and the students. Today was a fantastic day, and we really appreciated, you know, all the presentations and all the substantive recommendations that we'll be able to continue to utilize as we move forward with economic vitality here in the village. And I tell you, man, I think this day, I look forward to it today, and you guys really delivered. I think this is the highlight of my week, and I wish you all, the best of luck in all your future endeavors, and consider Oak Park as an employer at some point, as a future opportunity. A lot of bright minds in this room. And again, thank you again, and congratulations on getting through today as well.
All right. Right. All right, I'd like to conclude by applauding the instructors again. Please stand up so that I know you have done a lot of work, and that's a very difficult course, right? Thank you. All right. Now, yes, a lot of students will be doing interns, and hopefully that we can probably connect in that respect at some point. Yeah, that'd be very helpful. Right. Thank you. All right, adjourn.